babies looking for food, starvation, the recipe, people subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day in every clue. Don't let it go, it's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep, leaving 7 roads to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a death old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct, and I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink, but I documented for the world what I see and think. Feel we on the call and I feel we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die, you voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a lotus coming out of the mud with colors, I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers, cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather, I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double, but nature gets the shit in the way to settle. If you stop the machines for a minute you might hear, but they won't cause the TV's whisper in the ear. And capitalism has eyes that don't tear, and they cloud up and get crazy and won't steer. And like an ab, it's hard to get an ass to listen. Living like this is like living in prison. It's hard to keep hope when you're living in prison. The spiritual thoughts, so yes, the mental prison. The outside, yes, it's got to get through. Something's gotta die, so something here can live. Your life is nothing if you got nothing to give. Keeping the spiritual, yes, disguised as religion. Controlling your mind, the mental prison. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war.
So here we go, y'all. It's going to be an ill show today. You know, there's a lot of information coming out, and it's constant drip, like constant situation where it's hard to keep up. We got Ukraine, we got the Epstein files, and we got a whole lot more. There's more. We got a guy who got just 2 days ago hit with a what do they call this? A bow, with a crossbow in New Jersey, right? I didn't even get a chance to cover that. I mean, there's loads of stuff to cover. There's loads of news, especially coming out of the U.S. that's happening, but especially with this Ukraine thing. So before I get into the Ukraine stuff, because that is of consequence, really, it's of consequence to everybody. Some people are completely oblivious to how much consequence it has to their life, and others are more, you know, how can I say this? A little bit more aware. And, you know, a lot of people maybe take for granted the freedoms that they've had. and you know, and other people connect the dots and really do see that, wait a second, you're living in a serious situation. You're living in a serious political situation, nationally in the U.S. and geopolitically, that is directly connected and tied to the events in the United States of America without any question whatsoever. The global events are attached exactly to Donald J. Trump's presidency and what helped him get into the presidency, which is Putin, which is Xi. I mean, I'm not saying all of them, are so calculated in the sense that they could predict the outcome. No. I don't think so. I don't think they all think the same way. Xi, Putin, nah. But will they help each other from time to time? Will they help, for whatever immediate business they want to encounter? Yeah. But listen, this is like dominoes. Everyone falls and hits another one and knocks another one over, and you don't know how many times that domino circle is going to go around you before it hits you. It's up in the air. It's like musical chairs right now. And we've been told as Americans our whole lives, pretty much, this little fallacy of we have the Atlantic, we have the Pacific. It's hard for somebody to hit us. You got to go, a missile got to go a long way. Yeah, I get that. Congratulations for that. That's a pretty, bland point, Yeah. It's been like that for a long time. That never stopped colonization. You know what I'm saying? That never stopped the measles from hitting motherfucking U.S. America. That never stopped anything. That didn't stop Ebola. That didn't stop AIDS. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on. Yeah. I mean, really, bombs get advanced. But not only that, you got submarines too, and if you don't take the Baltic Isles serious, what's happening in the Baltic Isles, that is Denmark, Sweden, Finland, these countries here, Poland, right? If you don't take what's going on, Estonia, if you don't take what's going on in their backyard, right, which is Russian submarines in Russia, you don't take that serious. Do you know how easy it is to get a damn submarine from the Baltic Isles over to the United States of America without the help of all these countries? Do you know how easy that is? Don't you know? I hope you do know, because that's what NATO has been up to over here in these parts, stopping Russian submarines from coming out of Russia into the Baltic Sea and going right over to the United States of America and launching a fucking nuclear attack from there, close. Okay, so all this shit about the Atlantic and this ain't got nothing to do with us. Ha ha ha. The joke is on you. The joke is on you. You've been lied to. You've been given, how can I say this? You've been given the slow class, history lesson, the slow class geopolitical, geopolitics for slow folk that got to get the dumbed down version of geopolitics. You know what I'm saying? And good morning to everybody. Now check this out. Oh, we got exactly. You got the Chinese. It's the same. This is on. It's on right now. And it is serious. It's very serious, in the Chinese Straits right now, in the Asian waters, right? In the eastern waters, around Japan, around Taiwan. It is, a serious moment. And of course, no nation in their right mind wants to be behind the ball. Nobody wants to be late on the jump. If one does something, another wants to be prepared to take action, and that's a serious situation to be in. But understand something. The United States of America having a weak brain, having a weak president, having an ignorant, basically, what did they say? He has dementia, possibly. A guy that is in poor health. And was weird from the beginning. Even in good health, Donald Trump was a moron. Like, get that straight. Even in good health, Donald Trump is not no goddamn statesman. He doesn't know it. You know how much he knows about geopolitics? Probably getting compromised in Russia while he's over there having some beauty pageants. That's to the extent that he knows about geopolitics, getting blackmailed because he might like little girls. You see what I'm saying? That's the extent of what Donald Trump really knows about geopolitics on a good day. But having said that, the man is a moron. The leader of the most powerful single most powerful country on earth is a moron and has never seen a moron of the likes of this, and that is the situation. Because of that, that's a domino that moves, that knocked something over, that triggered something on earth. And people, all of us together, are about to go through this, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's a little moment and you're happy for it, or you think it's not, whether you pro-Russian in China or whether you pro-NATO or you it doesn't matter. We're going to go through this motherfucker together. You better believe that. We're going through this together as one on earth, the human race. You see what I'm saying? So having said that, before we get into the serious shit, I want to just go over a few simple things. Now, let me pull this up here. Can y'all see this? Right. You can see this, right? Hopefully. Let me see. Here we go. Can y'all see this now? Okay. It says, here we go. Okay. It's talking about the Michigan. Right. Now, check this out. The FBI has not identified all the Epstein victims photographed. Right. So they have victims. They have photographs. They have loads of photographs that they have not identified any victims in. 0 victims, right? That's the scenario with the FBI. So they have individuals that have not been identified that are in photographs that they believe are victims, right? Well, is this FBI actively looking to find out to identify those people in those photographs? Is the FBI actively looking for people to fill in the blanks? Are they actually out there taking every claim serious? What do you think? You let me know. I want to know what you think about that, because I'm thinking the story about the baby being thrown in the Michigan lake, right? If you all remember that. Have you remember that? Do y'all remember that? That just happened. That's the thing where they claim Trump witnessed it, and they claim it's connected to Trump. It could be allegedly maybe Trump's baby, maybe not, but it's a baby that came as the result of her being sex trafficked, right? And Trump is one of the people allegedly that was, part of that, right? Now, she says her uncle was sex trafficking her together with Epstein. And the concept is that Trump was one of the people and that might be Trump's baby. Yeah, that's what some are saying. I'm not saying it's true, but that's what some people are saying in social media. People may induct that, right, from the actual communications. There was a person who wrote in, allegedly a woman who wrote the FBI and has not been contacted back by the FBI, wrote 2 emails to the FBI. And the first one, she used the alias, I guess, out of fear. I don't know. The second one, she used a real name. This is what's stated in the FBI report. So if you got victims that you can't identify and you got photographs that you can't identify of victims, right? If you know this, right, then why would you not be out there tracking down who this person is? If they're still alive, who their uncle is? Because think about it. Once a person says it happened to them and then they say my uncle was sex trafficking me, why would a person say their uncle was sex trafficking them? Why would they say that? If the idea is that it's not true, why would they say that? And even if it is true, right? Let's say it is true, because it's quite possible. It happens all the time, apparently, right? In this world, the world's a bad place. Why wouldn't that be considered someone that might be able to corroborate? And at the very least, if you have photographs of victims you cannot identify, which the FBI says they have not identified all the victims in the photographs. That's their own, claim. Right? That is their claim. They are claiming to track down any victim. They are claiming to want to be tracking down any victim to identify any possible case. Well, to me, it seems like that might be one. They might want to know who they might want to identify who wrote that letter. They might want to identify, if the claim is real, because as of yet, they have not said that it is not real. They haven't said it's not real. The FBI has not claimed it, not in any, official capacity. They haven't said, we've researched it, we found the person. No. That I find that very, very interesting. Like, because if you found the person, or if you found it to be fake, then what are your methods and means of knowing that it's fake? Did you track it down? Did you open up an investigation? Did you determine that this is not a real person? Did you, and how did you determine that? There's nothing that's been said about it. That's really, really strange. So my view is that there's something really, really bad about these Epstein files, and it's way bigger than what people think. And I know that's not a new revelation for a lot of people. And I've said it before myself. This is way bigger. But in terms of just the volume of people that, victims, it doesn't seem like the FBI is really looking for many. I would say that now. This is if you didn't believe it before, this letter that came out that was exposed, this and what the FBI has said about it so far, it doesn't seem like the FBI is actually looking for any victims at all, or looking to identify any victims that are in in these photographs. They don't seem serious about it, and it's just my opinion. Now that I said that, there's a lot more going on about the Epstein files. They found a million more files. You see what I mean? Maybe 10 million. How many million more? It's a crazy amount of, they came out there and said, yeah, we went through a thorough investigation. We went through all these files, diligent, and we found no other evidence of any co-conspirators or any other crimes, co-conspirators connected to any other crimes. That's what they said. And then you find out there's millions of other files they had no idea even existed. You see what I mean? So, this is crazy. This is crazy. This is very, very huge, and on all levels. And I have no doubt that it's connected to what is going on internationally. Somehow, some way, that's how big it was. Some of the victims were from the Ukraine region, Eastern Europe, people that came out of these wars in the past over there. You see what I'm saying? Out of these conflicts, like young people, like seriously, I'm not bullshitting. That's not what the show is about today, but just look into it. Just look into it, right? Now, I'm going to flip over to this situation with the Ukraine again, and then get back into whatever you think about the Epstein files later, right? Later on in the stream. But let me know, what do you think about this situation with the victims? Do you think the FBI is actually looking to solve this crime, with these Epstein victims? Or do you believe that it's a cover up? Just let me know, because I at this point, I really believe it is Pam Bondi. Too many coincidences, too much bad investigating, too much bad DOJ shit around these Epstein files. Remember, the first bad DOJ thing, or the first bad, what do you call it? DA, not DOJ, but DA shit that happened around the Epstein files is what originally happened in Florida. Where's Bondi from? From Florida. She was the head DEA after Acostas, the guy who fucked it up. And that she had to work on this case somehow, some way, or be very, very well informed about the case at that time as it was happening, because she was working for the DA then. How do you get to be the head DA if you wasn't the vice DA or in the running to be DA or the assistant DA or all of these things? So she's very well acquainted with this. And I find it very, very strange and suspicious that now she is at the helm again. And it's not going well. Is that an accident? Was she specifically appointed by Donald J. Trump to actually continue the cover up? Is that the whole point? Then you have then you have the story. I'm going to get back into this after Epstein, but then you have the story of 2019. Trump is in office, right? And then you have the journalist, right, who opens the flood dams on the Epstein files, right? I think I reported on this in one of the shorts just a couple of days on, but Michael Cohen, I think Michael Cohen was the one who broke the story, right? If not, it doesn't matter. It's all out there. This was like 2 days ago, but now this is all out there. Journalist who broke the dam on the Epstein story, right? She's being tracked by Donald J. Trump's FBI back then in 2019. Yo, listen, this is, I find it hard to believe that if it was just about girls at this point, I find it hard to believe he would, there would be so much effort. I don't know, so many, how can I say this? So much effort, or perceived, it seems like he's making a lot of effort or pretending to not be concerned while actually doing a whole lot, like communicating in foul ways, doing a lot to, let me see, not have any empathy for the victims, actually not work with the victims at all. Donald J. Trump, he doesn't have any kind word for any goddamn victim, really, at all. It seems to me that this might be about a lot more than just the victims at this point. And even if it does have something to do with Donald J. Trump, it may not just be about the victims. It might be more about espionage that happened, these victims being used as a tool for espionage, for blackmailing, for putting in a Manchurian type of candidate. Like, seriously, because this man is old, out of it, but even in the beginning was weak, in debt, bad businessman. He was basically the type that you could get your claws in. You see what I mean? He was weak. He's a weak individual, you see, and apparently doesn't know how to do business, but wants to keep money, goes bankrupt all the time. This type of thing. I mean, weak people are the type of people that get into trouble with the mob. They're the type of people that get blackmailed. They're the type of people that intelligence agencies around the world will want to get their hooks in. You see what I'm saying? And I'm just saying, here we are. So let's get over to to Epstein. I mean, not Epstein, to Zelensky. Sorry about that. Let's get over to Zelensky and see what is going on here. Yeah, he has met up on Fox News in Florida while he was in Florida. And there's been a lot of coverage about this. Trump making statements and the press showing Zelensky's facial response to some of the statements Donald Trump has been making, this type of thing. Oh, I see we got one troll in the chat. Hey, how you doing, Graham? Any case, just faking out there, man. Just faking. In any case, and, I just really hope American citizens are watching this, because, sorry to say this starts with Donald J. Trump. As far as responsibility, these things start with Donald J. Trump. And before we even play this interview from Zelensky, let me pull up one other thing right here and just remind people of how involved Trump is in this. This is not a coincidence. Listen to this man's words very clearly. Listen to them.
Look, I was on the phone with him for almost, I guess, 2.5 hours. They're just telling me now. It's a long time. We discussed a lot of things. We didn't talk about the weather. Now,
he's admitting right now that he talked to talked to Putin for 2 goddamn hours. Who the hell need to do that? 2 fucking hours? That's excessive. But here's the thing. Why would Putin even be interested in talking to this motherfucker for 2 goddamn hours? That's a long time. Man, you're supposed to be able to wrap it up in a 15-minute conversation. What the fuck? If you're not talking about World War III, then you don't need to be on the phone with nobody for 2 goddamn hours. But this is what Donald Trump says. So this is something extraordinary. Either it's an extreme sign of weakness, and I believe it's weakness. Like, Putin really needs Trump. Without Trump, his shit doesn't rock. I mean, of course, he has the help of China, but China will abandon Russia at any moment that they can get guarantees from someone else. You see what I'm saying? So, they're in it for business. They're not, in my opinion, they're not necessarily in it for the same reasons as Putin, right? So they've benefited a lot from Putin's behavior, but I don't see them being eye to eye with Putin. It's just out of necessity at the moment. But I don't think China wants to go into, all out war, like straight up. They're not. I don't believe they believe that they're ready. If they could take Taiwan, they would try to do it. But World War III, I don't think they're really up for it. They might defend themselves, but I don't think they want to be a part of triggering it. Putin, on the other hand, is a desperate authoritarian. He's going to go down in Russia. Like, Putin is going down in Russia, just like a lot of his generals, and just like he has killed many people. I mean, allegedly, according to sources, right? They have said he's killed plenty of people in his ranks. Oligarchs. I mean, not just nobodies. We're not talking about nobodies. We're talking about people in the aristocracy in Russia. You see what I mean? Like, people, oligarchs, people with power, people within his regime. You see? So he seems like the most desperate player. But this is who Trump is talking to. So Trump makes that confession 2 hours. And if you let Trump talk, he always confesses. But just listen in detail. He's going to say so much more. Watch this.
We weren't talking about what a beautiful day it is in Palm Beach, Florida. Remember, and I'm just going to go off just for this, with Bush, they took a lot, Russia. With Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. With Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that.
You hear that? With Trump, he says, with Trump, they took nothing. Now, this was Trump before he was president, you see, or earlier on, right? This is when he's complaining about what Kamala Harris and what Biden and what Obama did. They took nothing with him. They took nothing. That's Trump's position, that Biden was weak. Obama was weak. Kamala was weak. That's Trump's official opinion. He has always held that opinion. But soon as he gets power, what does he say? He says this. Look, I was on the phone with him for almost, 2.5 hours. They're just telling me now. It's a long time. We discussed a lot of things. We didn't talk about the weather. We weren't talking about what a beautiful day it is in Palm Beach, Florida. So, you see, Trump, he's now switched sides. He's not even seeing Putin as being the bad guy. He's not seeing Putin as being, how can I say this? He sees himself right now, even though he's not aiding Ukraine, right? Obama, and he's complaining about Obama not aiding Ukraine enough. He's complaining about Biden not doing it enough, that Putin and Russia took land from Ukraine under Biden and under Obama. And what is he doing now about the land taking? He's doing nothing about the land taking.
Remember, and I'm just going to go off just for this, with Bush, they took a lot, Russia. With Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. With Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that. Look, I was on the phone with him for almost, 2.5 hours. They're just telling me now. It's a long time. We discussed a lot of things. We didn't talk about the weather. We weren't talking about what a beautiful day it is in Palm Beach, Florida. Remember, and I'm just going to go off just for this, with Bush, they took a lot, Russia. With Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. With Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that.
Right.
Look, I was on the phone with him for almost, 2.5 hours. They're just telling me now. It's a long time. We discussed a lot of things. We didn't talk about the weather. We weren't talking about what a beautiful day it is in Palm Beach, Florida.
But you weren't talking about aiding Ukraine either. You weren't talking about aiding Ukraine either. So that is the background, the real background to this meeting. What is going on in this meeting? What happened in this meeting? What you witnessed today or in the last 24 hours of Zelensky going to Mar-a-Lago to talk with Trump. That is the background, the flip-floppiness of Trump. And that could only, in my mind, mean one thing. Like, he's up to something, to scamming. He doesn't have a side. The side that he has is he hasn't said to people yet, So, if you're looking for him to claim that he's on Russia's side, he's not going to say that. If you're looking for him to claim that he's on Zelensky's side, he's not going to say that, because he's not. I mean, he might be on Russia's side, but don't wait for him to say it, right? He might, you can see he's not really on Zelensky's side at all, right? Even though he can claim it somewhat, he's having a meeting with him. But when you flip-flop like that and it's unclear what's going on in a situation that requires everyone have a definite position, when someone doesn't have a definite position, obviously the obvious is that there's something else of interest that they have, and it's not what anybody else's interests are. So having said that, let's just go into this meeting with Fox real quick. I haven't seen it. I want to see it. I'm glad it happened on Fox. Why am I happy that it happened on Fox? He may have gone around to a couple of agencies, news outlets at this point, but I like to see what the right wing is saying because, it gives some dimension to what the left is saying, right? So it gives dimension to the overall truth, the overall reality, whether you agree with what the right is saying or not. I certainly don't most of the time. Sometimes I do, because every once in a while, even a broken clock works. You see what I'm saying? So in any case, let's go.
Welcome back to West Palm Beach, Florida. We're speaking with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. As you look at the battle lines, they have not moved that much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically the same map.
Yeah. They don't have successful things. We have to understand. The number of their soldiers is decreasing because before this year, the number was increasing. They mobilized each month 43,000 people, signed it contracts, and this year, first time, the number of mobilized people and the number of losses the same. So this year, 2025, the first time when the number of their army stopped increasing. So we think that the 2026, God bless, we will stop the war. Otherwise, Putin will decide to mobilize people. So now he has contracts. Because his nation doesn't respect mobilization, he will have problems with his society, if it's understandable. Yeah. That's why he doesn't want to make mobilization. He can, but I'm sure that he doesn't want. That's why I think that.
Okay, so that's an interesting point right there. And it's interesting to see Fox News. I said this, Fox has been slipping on Trump the last month. They've been flipping now. You could see for some reason the things that weren't so obvious all the time before. Now, all of a sudden, Fox is a little more agreeable with left-leaning media. They're a little more agreeable with Zelensky all of a sudden, and it's because it's obvious, because it's apparent that Trump is a lunatic. It's okay. It's becoming okay to not take Trump's side anymore. If you're on the right, it's becoming a little more okay than it was last year before the election. Last year before the election and right after the election, you could not hold any agreement with Zelensky at all on the right. It was simple. He is the perpetrator and Putin is the friend, the ally, right? You got the red carpet from Putin, you know what I mean? And people were like, the MAGA supporters were like, thumbs up. Yeah, that's great. They welcome Putin in Alaska. These motherfuckers don't even realize that Putin wants fucking Alaska back. You know what I'm saying? Dumbasses. Like, don't you understand that's the first place in America that Russia colonized? We talking about the 1700s. Yeah, they killed Native Americans in Alaska. Yes, you may not have known that, but that's part of Russia's colonial history. If you didn't know, Russia has a colonial history that is merged with Western Europe's colonial history. Very fucking simple. And you cannot talk about colonization in any way, shape, or form if you make that huge blunder and not know that Russia also has a colonial history. no one will really take you fucking serious. They may not even bother to even stop you to even inject this shit, because they would be like, damn, you missing a lot. You think Russia's going to come and save you from somebody else colonizing your ass? Ha ha ha. When does that ever happen? When does that ever happen? No, in your dreams that has happened. They have always been interested in their own fight, in their own purpose. You know, that's what they've been interested in. None of that other shit matters. They will sell you weapons just like they have to Venezuela and then watch you fall. Understand that. That's what they do. That's what they've been doing in history. You know, they don't care if you antagonize the U.S. They don't care if you attack the U.S. You know, the reality of it is that if you're attacking the U.S., you're helping them. They don't give a fuck if you die. They don't necessarily have plans to save you. They just selling you weapons, controlling you. You know, that's their way. They have their way of colonizing people. So you have to recognize that. And if you don't recognize it, you are the goddamn fool. It's just very simple. It's just very simple. Now, let's get over to back to what he's saying. You see, the Fox News guy said,
because his nation doesn't respect mobilization. He will have problems with his society, if it's understandable.
Yeah. Yep. So now we have a point where Fox has decided that this is accurate. Zelensky knows what the hell he's talking about. And my advice would be to people, American people, you should listen to what Zelensky is saying. You don't have to, this has nothing to do with wanting to defend Ukraine or not. But you need to understand the difference between a man telling you facts and Putin telling you lies. Between him and Putin, Zelensky is the only one telling you the facts how they are. What he is saying is true and accurate, and what he has been saying about Ukraine has always been true and accurate. You need to understand that. He is a good statesman, regardless of his background. He has the moral fiber and ethics to be a statesman. He is informed and educated as a Ukrainian. You see what I mean? So don't sleep on that. And if you want to belittle him because he's a clown, well, you're the goddamn clown, because he knows more than you on the topic, and he has the world meeting to listen to him. Even President Trump, who would never fucking meet your dumb ass. You have nothing to offer Trump because you're broke. If you think Zelensky is a clown, he's just a fucking comedian, you're the fool, because he's the comedian in the room with world leaders all over the fucking world and got Putin shook. Okay, so those are the facts. Now, people going to wake up to a lot more facts pretty soon. You know what I'm saying? I mean, some people are a little slow, but it's coming.
That's why he doesn't want to make mobilization. He can, but I'm sure that he doesn't want. That's why I think that now we and Russians, in the situation when United States can move the situation to the peace quicker.
Put pressure on Putin.
It's true.
And the Europeans want to see that too?
Yes.
Does President Trump want to see that?
I hope so.
You've also created your own industry as far as drones and that military technology.
This is great. What can I say? Openly, this is great thing what we have now. More than hundreds of companies. Really, it's not about dozens. It's about hundreds of companies. And this industry is United States now very interested in this industry. And of course, we want to share knowledge with our strategic partners, and we want to have.
But you can't share none of this knowledge with Trump, because he would just give it to Putin. You know, and that's the problem. People do not trust the United States of America under Donald J. Trump's leadership or anyone in his administration. Like, that's the truth. You see what I mean? So I doubt Zelensky will be giving any of that technology over, or anybody in Europe, over to Trump. You see what I mean? Like, and in case you don't know, out of countries like Denmark and a few other countries, it's pretty much understood that Trump is likely compromised by Putin and that he is actually a threat. He is one of the threats. That's happened in the last couple of weeks officially. You see what I mean? So not the American people, the president of the United States is seen as a threat to people's societies, to people's sovereignties, to people's safety, to people's way of life in the Western world. That's what's going on right now. Of course, you ain't going to hear that from Trump.
Co-production, big co-production with American military tech. So I think this has huge future.
There is still concern in the U.S. in a number of quarters about corruption, about money going in. You know, you have...
These motherfucker got the nerve to ask him about corruption. Any corruption that's going on in Ukraine is going on to the billionth of times more in the United States under Trump right now. Like, let's be very, very clear. That's a bozo ass question. He's asking this man about corruption. He's getting fucking bombed and attacked. Had an army, 150,000 military be lined up on his border. And the president Putin the authoritarian Putin tells everyone in the world, including every maggot out there in the universe, including Donald Trump. He told Donald Trump and every other American, everybody else on earth, you are fucking crazy if you think these military are here to attack Ukraine. And then after a week, he attacked Ukraine. That's what he did. You see? Yeah.
In recent days,
hey, Charlotte.
Ukraine's anti-corruption agency raided government.
What's up to everybody in the chat? If I haven't called everybody out, appreciate y'all. Click the like button if you don't mind. But seriously, he's talking about what kind of motherfucking question is this? Excuse me, what is this? Excuse me, but people want to know about the corruption in Ukraine. Motherfucker, I want to know about the corruption in the United States of fucking America. Like, what the fuck? Listen, you are in no position to ask that question. Did you even ask fucking Trump that question? Like, what the fuck? But this is Fox News. All right. This guy has capped for Trump a million times anyway. So what can we expect? Right. Let's hear the rest of the interview. I'm sorry.
Huge future.
There is still concern in the U.S. in a number of quarters about corruption, about money going in. You know, you had in recent days, Ukraine's anti-corruption agency raided government offices and parliament tied to.
I wish that would happen in goddamn USA. Raid somebody. Please raid them for corruption. Can the FBI and the CIA and the military raid the U.S. government offices for some corruption right about now? Can you do that? No, you can't. Even if there was loads of it, which it is, you cannot. That's the position you're in. You're in a position where you have to sit back and do nothing. You have to shut up or you lose your job.
This $100 million kickback scheme involving members tied to you. There were 5 suspects, including your ally, Timur Mindich, as well as your justice minister, who were charged last month with money laundering. And then you had anti-corruption officers raid the home of your former chief of staff, Andrei Yermak. He has not been charged, but he did resign. This is happening. So what do you say to people about the concern about corruption inside Ukraine today?
What do you say to the American people about the concerns about corruption in the USA? Of course, you can't say that because, you know, you're talking about the world's most powerful country on earth, single country on earth. You can't say that. You need us. You can't ask us that question. How dare you? You need us. You need us. We're so fucking important, even if we elect a moron.
Look, I'm focusing on the war. What about anti-corruption agencies there? I mean,
I wish Zelensky was the president of the United States. What the fuck?
Do what they have to do. They have all their independence. Nobody is stopping there. They are checking what they have to do, and we are not stopping. It doesn't matter what person, close or not, we know that or not, or we don't. I mean, they have to do their work. This is war. This is democracy the same way, yes, and we have to respect it, of course.
But you're concerned about it.
Concerned? No, of course. Look, of course, a lot of concerns. Because, you know,
Listen, you know, I don't know if people realize this, but the Department of Justice in the United States, they're supposed to do their job even if the president's not concerned. Or don't you understand they're supposed to operate independently? The FBI is supposed to operate as its own brain. It's supposed to have its own concern even without the president. You see what I mean? It's just ridiculous, this kind of question. Like, you know, are you concerned about it? Yeah, but that's why you have a democracy, and that's why you have a DOJ in your country, and that's why you have them investigating these things. If you have people investigating corruption, why are you worried? What the fuck? That's a good sign, but he's not. You know, it's like, what kind of universe is this guy living in, man? It's a propaganda universe. You know, trying to project this onto him. This is gaslighting. You know what I'm saying? This is gaslighting. Like, this is the last question he should be asking. Listen, nobody that works for the United States government right now should go out in the media anywhere on earth and be concerned about anybody else's corruption. You need to fucking be concerned about your own, because your country is going to fall because of corruption right now. That's your problem right now. Your exact problem that you're having right now with your economy, with your trade, with your production, with your allies, with your measles. The fucking measles are out of control in the U.S. and every other, with your homelessness, with your joblessness, you know, with your problem with, natural disasters, not even being able to have your infrastructure in place to handle these modern disasters, natural disasters coming, you know, all those problems are on you, or because of your corruption, your level of corruption. You cannot preach to anyone right now. You are not effective. You're no help to anybody right now for any reason right now. You can't preach to anyone about corruption, anyone about crime, anyone about human rights. You've given that position up by violating your own human and civil rights of your own citizens right now. You're going around locking people up with motherfuckers with masks on, detaining American citizens. You're detaining people and locking them up with no due process. You're fucked. You are the last people, and I'm talking about myself too. I'm an American citizen, although I live outside of the U.S. Shut the fuck up about somebody else's corruption right now. Like, if you're an American citizen, that's my statement to this guy interviewing him on Fox. You're the last person that should ever ask that question. You are a complete, utter hypocrite living in a delusional fucking world. This man Zelensky is trying to help your dumbass, and you ask him about corruption anyway.
Problem is, Brad, that from the very beginning of the war, you know, all the institutions, they didn't work. And a lot of steps governmental institutions did, you know, like during the war. I don't know if you understand. I think you understand. Yeah. During the war, it's not according to the rules and etc. That's why, of course.
I mean, we talked about that on the front lines. We talked about this very thing.
Yeah, but this is the life.
Eventually, this war will end. You will leave office.
Yeah.
What do you think you'll do next?
I don't know. Really, I don't know. Have a rest? I want to have a rest.
Your family?
Yes, I want very much. Yeah, really, I want this.
And so for someone in the U.S. looking at this, saying, this has gone on so long, what do you tell them?
I agree with you that people are tired.
I know exactly what to tell people that in the U.S. that have that idea in their brain. Let me handle that. I'm gonna handle that question for Zelensky here. Here, this is what we tell people.
Remember, and I'm just gonna go off just for this.
If you tired in the U.S. of how long this has lasted, if you happen to be tired, then listen to this, okay? And this will help refresh your memory of why it's taking so long.
A lot, Russia, with Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. With Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that.
No, look, I was on the phone with him for almost, I guess, 2.5 hours. They're just telling me now. It's a long time. We discussed a lot of things. We didn't talk about the weather. We weren't talking about what a beautiful day it is in Palm Beach, Florida.
Remember, and I'm just going to go off just for this. With Bush, they took a lot. Russia. With Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. With Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that.
No, look, I was on the phone with him for almost, I guess, 2.5 hours. They're just
Could
telling
this
me
be
now.
why
It's
it's
a long
taking so
time.
long?
We discussed a lot of things. We didn't talk about the weather.
I mean, think
We weren't
about
talking
this.
about-
Think about this. This is crazy. Think about this. This guy. He flip flop. You know, he's the reason why it's taking so fucking long. You know, he flip flops on the entire thing, and nobody in MAGA calls him on it. Nobody in Fox News calls him on it. It's him who's slowing the program down. First of all, it's an issue. It's a serious issue. Second of all, you know, it's okay for any country to be reserved in how they approach this scenario. Even the EU was reserved in how they approached the scenario. Obama was reserved. You know, they gave equipment and things like this, but in a reserved way. They didn't just jump head on into it. And Biden also, he was reserved, even though he did more. He was reserved, but he did more than Trump did. You see what I mean? Each president has done a little more, right? But when you listen, except now, Trump is the one who's actually doing less, you see? But the problem is that Trump is him flip-flopping when he makes these two different types of statements. You know, on one hand, he's friendly with Putin. He's not putting his foot down with Putin. And then on the other hand, he's bragging about how they lost so much territory under everyone else. And then he's saying that it's not happening under him. No, it's happening under him. It's actually happening under him. He's the one who's suggesting that they lose more territory. He's the one who's bargaining for Putin. He's saying Putin won't stop unless you give him land. Isn't that exactly what he's been saying? He's been literally saying that. Well, they don't want to give up land, but he's putting the idea out there like that's a okay principle to have. That's what Trump has been doing. He flip-flops in his own statements. It's his own statements. You can remove everyone else from the equation. In his own statements, he is on two sides of the coin. And that is what is actually slowing down shit.
What a beautiful day it is in Palm Beach, Florida.
Remember, and I'm just going to go off just for this. With Bush, they took a lot. Russia. With Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. With Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that.
No, look, I was on the phone with him for almost, I guess, 2.5 hours. They're just telling me now. It's a long time. We discussed a lot of things. We didn't talk about the weather. We weren't talking about what a beautiful day it is in Palm Beach, Florida.
Remember, and I'm just going to go off just for this. With Bush, they took a lot. Russia. With Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. With Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that.
Okay. Yeah, so just remember that. Now, he's on the phone 2 hours. Did they talk about Venezuela? You know what I mean? You know, I mean, Venezuela is going on Putin. What do you think about that? I mean, and see, if you notice, Putin is doing the same thing, flip-flopping on Venezuela. See, they're playing the same actual game, both of them. You know, they're playing a game and where they're lying to the public, using the media, using their force to manipulate, get what they want, and rob people. You know, and, you know, the bottom line is you just can't take both sides. And why is him and why is he, you know, you see what this doesn't match up. So you want to know why this is prolonged, why this is taking such a long time with the U.S. and sitting outside and harassing Venezuela and doing all of this. Putin is selling Venezuela weapons. Putin makes these little minor statements. It was the same thing with Palestine. He sold plenty of weapons to Hezbollah, sold plenty of weapons to Hamas, sold plenty of weapons to Iran. You see what I mean? You know, but when it comes to bombing Iran, Putin basically ain't do shit. When it comes to, you know, genocide against Palestinians, Putin ain't doing shit. When it comes to taking Gaza, Putin ain't doing shit. You know what Putin is doing? He's having meetings with Trump in fancy places. You know, big shows, walking on the red carpet. That's what they're doing, visiting sheikhs and shit, getting goddamn, you know, airplanes. And while they're not solving one goddamn conflict. They're creating conflicts and they're lying to the public about it. You see what I mean? And this is going to, if anything else, could be the reasoning by a World War III. That would be the reason how these two men, Putin and Trump, are handling global affairs.
Of course, people are tired. I think that I don't, nobody knew that it will be so long. You know, Russians didn't know. Really, Russians didn't know.
They thought it would be over in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and of course, I remember after 20 or 30 days of the war, I remember we just spoke. We just said, I remember we spoke that, 30 days, it's so long, but we have to stay. And we will stay. Then we spoke after 1 year, and I saw that after 1 year that all of us were tired totally, but we couldn't, як дозволити собі. Yeah. And we couldn't allow ourselves to be tired. That's why we lived and fought the second year. I think that now we have a strong will from the United States to finish this war and more pressure on Putin. We're asking only pressure on Putin because my feeling is that the steps of President Trump, like sanctions and economical step, that he shows that he's ready for very strong steps. He's doing them, and he's ready. He's such a person, and that's why I think.
Now, just keep in mind, Zelensky's job is to have his door open to anyone who claims they want to do good. You see, that's what he has to do. He is not a superpower. His country is being invaded. And in that particular situation, you do have to have your door open to any possibility that can help solve the problem. You done goof. What's up? Yeah, so regardless of what he believes is behind Trump's inconsistencies or statements or love affair with Putin, or his deep affection for Putin, no matter what he thinks it is, he still has to come and visit because he knows what the USA could do at any moment, regarding weapons or security could be the difference in the outcome. So he's not going to shut his door. He also knows that the European allies are also doing the same thing. So he knows the position that they're in also. But if you remember back, Zelensky, a year ago or 2 years ago, this is when Biden was the president. Zelensky said, if Putin is not stopped, people said this, not even just Zelensky. They said it, but Zelensky also said this. I'm going to look this up real quick. But matter of fact, let me just pull it up now. Let me see here. He made statements to the effect of if he is not stopped here, it could be, the beginning of World War III. It could be the thing that starts World War III. Now, let me see. I like to have my references together, but I don't always prepare things on the live ready. So I'm just going to take a second to pull up this reference right here. Please do me a favor, click the like button if you are, if you can do that for me. It helps more people see the stream. All right, let me see here. All right, so I'm going to pull this up real quick. A couple of references around this now, and the dates, and because this has been said, and this has been said during Biden's term. Now, let me see here. Did Zelensky say this? Okay. Wait a second. Okay, it's coming. Yeah, I appreciate that. If you could do that, folks that are listening and the folks that are in the chat. I know a lot of time the people listening, they don't have the, pick up their remote or whatever and click the like button. But do me a favor. What is going on here? It keeps picking up some. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So, for the record, Zelensky has repeatedly warned that if Putin is not stopped in Ukraine, the war could escalate into World War III. Now, look, I'm not making this up. Let me pull up some of the references too, but people need to pay attention. Zelensky has said this a few different times. He's not the only one. I think people thought it could be hyperbole, but American citizens need to understand it's not hyperbole. Trade, if you're caught up in a war, a world war, you know what I mean? Meaning a war that has different components geographically across the globe, that's going to affect trade. The U.S. we do rely on trade. We rely on trade just for a number of things. We rely on us selling things to other people, whether you know it or not. But we also rely on receiving things. And if you don't look at the things we sell, the exports versus the things we buy, the imports, you won't have any idea on how trade, in a world war could affect us. You see, but if we have the opportunity to stop a world war, that would be a good thing, because we continue to benefit then because of our exporting is great, whether you know it or not. It used to be great before Trump was there. It used to be very powerful, but Trump came up with this delusion about a trade deficit, and without even understanding trade at all in that count, and also leaving out a couple of main factors in the trade that made the U.S. GDP keep getting greater and greater. You have to just ask yourself, if you're doing so bad in trade, why is your GDP keep exceeding others if you're doing so bad? You see? So, in any case, Trump never got around to asking that. But here's the thing with Zelensky and some of the comments about World War III. Zelensky, he said this in 2022. So this was under Biden. Zelensky has repeatedly warned that if Putin is not stopped, right, in Ukraine, the war could escalate into World War III. That theme has been consistent since 2022. So he's reiterated that time and time again. Below is a clear, accurate breakdown focused only on Zelensky and others making similar comments about Ukraine. Okay. Now, so let's see here. Let me pull this off of the screen real quick. Vladimir Zelensky, what he said. Zelensky has explicitly linked Russia's invasion to the risk of World War III on multiple occasions. I mean, if you pull up a map and look at where this conflict is taking place on the Black Sea, you might have an idea of the implications and the consequences that that are afoot here. You see what I mean? So, in any case, when I talk geopolitics, I like to throw up a map. So if you guys are listening, those of you that have a map next to you while you're listening or in your room, you probably have an even better idea of what I'm discussing right now than the people who don't. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you know how people get down. I like to have a map around me. But in any case, he warned that if Russia attacks NATO country, it would trigger World War III due to NATO's mutual defense obligations. He has said that Ukraine is effectively defending Europe, and that failure to stop Putin would allow the war to spread beyond Ukraine. He has framed Ukraine as the first line of defense against a wider global conflict involving a nuclear armed states, right? You already know that, there's North Korea has been sending soldiers, to die in Ukraine. There's been Chinese soldiers that have died in Ukraine, or people that have died in Ukraine fighting for Russia. And you know that there's people from Western countries that have also been a part of the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, right? So it's already a global affair. It's just not officially announced as one. But once it, goes to the next stage, those things are going to change, right? So His message is consistent. Stop Russia and Ukraine or the war will expand. Okay. Now, he does not usually say World War III. He has already started. Instead, he stressed imminent. He does not usually say World War III has already started. He does not say that. And exactly, I haven't said that either. But he says that if he's not stopped, it would lead to that. It's possible it could lead to that. Now, other people that have made similar World War III type of warnings about Ukraine, right? The former Ukrainian commander-in-chief said it. The war has effectively entered a World War level phase, argued that multiple countries have already involved indirectly weapons, intelligence, drones, troops by proxy, strongest language of anyone on the Ukrainian side, right? So his second, the commander-in-chief, right? The former commander-in-chief has said this already, right? The guy that was, I believe that's the president before him, right? Now, just in case, people are thinking of, are not aware of this, right? Okay, so his view, World War III characteristics are already present, right? A lot of people agree with this, and I do too, although it's not official, Now, let's see here. Former Ukrainian National Security Secretary also said this. What's his name? Alexei Danilo, okay? Now, let me see here. He said the war could become World War III if more global powers formally enter, warned especially about China or Iran, right? You see, expanding involvement. NATO and Western country leaders careful. Now, how this works is that what it really takes is for this chain of events, for one of the chains to pop. And you don't know who's going to pop, where it's going to pop. It's usually someone, it has something to do with any other country's red line, their actual weaknesses, what is affecting them most, so nobody knows where this is going to pop at, who could be the first or where it could pop, because right now you got different scenarios. You got Taiwan, you got the Middle East, right, with Iran and Israel, and some and you have Yemen, and you have different components there. Turkey, right, who's also concerned about what's going on in the Ukraine with Russia, and you have that Ukrainian thing, right? So there's a lot of different components there. Then you got Venezuela. Trump is out there sending the U.S. military to Venezuela. He's laying the ground for what could be a World War III. You see, laying the ground, meaning what comes before, you see, and that's actually very disturbing if you ask me. It's only going to lead to more people investing in more weapons, more people taking more harder approaches. Sadly enough, hopefully that doesn't happen. But when you go around and you have a president like Trump threatening people, and you got a president like Putin that's really out to violate international law, sell more weapons, and not really care, well, it just escalates. China is looking to sell more weapons, to be involved. At some point there's going to be a bubble. Now, who else? Joe Biden warned repeatedly about avoiding direct NATO-Russia war because it would be catastrophic. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said Russia-NATO war would be a far larger and more dangerous than Ukraine. German, French leaders said a Russian victory would destabilize all of Europe. You see, so this is what is coming. This is what is behind the concerns about the Ukraine. Now, American citizens may not always take that serious, but you will definitely be dealing with any effects at all. And you can see how many weren't serious about or concerned about their health care, right? So that's the status of American citizens. When they don't vote on health care and education and housing, you can see they're more concerned about other shit for some reason. So you can't expect all Americans to really know what is so important about Ukraine when they don't even know what's important about their own health care, their own access to education. They don't know what's important about their infrastructure. Americans, my people, are funny like that. Some of us do and some of us don't. About half do, about half don't. Maybe, you could say there's about 40% that do, 40% that don't, and then there's a 20% that's always wavering, on some things, I mean, it is what it is, but you can't expect Americans to know everything because look, they don't want their own health care. They don't demand it. They make excuses about it. They pretend about it. They blame different sides, but none of the people that blame any sides. Well, the Democrats try to come with some solutions, but these are, this thing about the tax deductions. I think it's fine it's great until you have a real plan like universal health care that would be cheaper, that would cost less of people's tax dollars. But since you don't have that, you need the tax credits. Well, what did the Republicans do? No, you don't need those tax credits. We're going to cut $1 trillion and watch people lose all their health care. Fuck it. While they have cancer, while they're in elder care, while they need all the, and we're going to keep asking them to keep paying the same amount of taxes at the same time. That's what's going on. I mean, so when you have a people like that can't even get the basics right and are the most richest country on earth, you can't expect them to know what the fuck to do with their money. You can't expect them to know what the fuck to do with their power. And you can't expect them to know what the fuck to do about Ukraine. They cannot connect the fucking dots, and you're seeing that. This is what everyone is seeing. The United States is a NATO country, but what you're seeing is the most powerful NATO country exhibit signs of not knowing what the fuck they're doing about anything, let alone the outside world, just about themselves. Like the United States of America and the people do not know what the fuck to do about themselves. Like flat out, they don't. And it's going to be that way for a while. There is a political issue going on there. And, there is some hope. I mean, even in this Fox interview, you're seeing Fox display a new willingness to kind of understand Zelensky a little more, a new willingness. But for the past years, they've been utterly, totally, utterly against Joe Biden and anything he did to help Ukraine, period. For them, the American people helping Ukraine from being invaded was an evil, was completely, utterly, totally, and only wrong. Could Joe Biden do with that? When the Democrats talked about health care, it could only be seen as totally wrong. And now they're about to take it. And what did these motherfuckers do? Now they flip flop. The MAGA people are like, huh? You shouldn't be taking our health care. You see how hard headed these people are? So they're going to be hard headed about Ukraine. They're going to be hard headed about global affairs. This is how Americans are. Sorry to say, we have a group that are fucking hard headed, and it makes us suffer. And these people are not rich. They're largely middle class, working class, and poor people. half of them are just dumb as a motherfucker. The other half get it. The other half of the working class get it. They want union jobs. They want a fairer access to education. They want everyone to have access to healthcare. Why? Because that makes us all stronger, right? But the other half is like, why are you trying to force healthcare on me? I don't want to pay for your health care. It's like, what the fuck? And now they want to pretend the news outlet that supports that kind of lunatic thinking, now they want to pretend like they give a fuck about Ukraine only because they see Trump has just lost his goddamn mind. Okay, well, you could have been on board when Biden was trying to help their ass, when the Democrats are trying to help Ukraine, trying to help American people get education, trying to help American people get a student debt relief, trying to help American people get infrastructure to help stop the flooding from goddamn, floods, to stop all kinds of shit, fires. You could have been on board when they tried to do those things. When they tried to deal with healthcare, you could have been on board, Fox News. But now you're going to wait to the last minute until the world's about to go to fucking hell? Okay.
This is a possibility to finish this war. Because Putin is, I think he doesn't understand what can be tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe I'm hoping. I don't know. I'm sharing what I think. Mm-hmm. That's why maybe this is a chance.
Europeans, all Europeans pay way more or less for health care. Way more or less than Americans pay. Americans pay like 3-4 times more for health care, and it doesn't even cover everybody. Europeans pay way less for health care, and it covers everybody. You tell me. I don't know. Is that good or bad? You tell me.
thing. If you were
I think it's good because I like healthcare. What the fuck?
to talk directly to Vladimir Putin right now, knowing what you know after meeting with President
Israel has universal health care. Israel got universal education and shit. Americans more concerned about them and don't even think about themselves. They're just dumb. Yo, you just have to say it. You just got to say it. Because if you're an American and you don't say we are fucking dumb, you can't get to the next point. It's no problem. I know it ain't every American that's dumb, but as a people, we're fucking dumb, yo. As a people, we are fucking dumb. As the most powerful country on earth, I mean, to be the most powerful country on earth, we some dumb motherfuckers. Like flat out. And I'm not arguing it with it. I'm not dumb, but I know when I'm looking at a fucking American, and I know how to deal with a dumbass fucking American so that they don't harm my motherfucking ass. So I must recognize that a lot of fucking Americans are goddamn dumb. And if it means me recognizing that stupidity to not follow in that direction that they take, I'm going to recognize that every goddamn day. That's what I'm doing.
Trump, you're talking directly to Vladimir Putin. What would you say to him?
I think this is important. That's why I said to President Trump, I think that the question of territory, the question of reasons of this war, why he occupied us, and I think
somebody said our species isn't exactly a bunch of geniuses. Yo, Alfred, exactly.
I think it was useful to speak, not because I don't want to speak with him. He's enemy for me. But I think that it's important.
Putin is the fucking enemy, like flat out. Just make it. He's an enemy, and if you don't, he's an enemy to the fucking Russian people. He's an enemy to humanity. Like, let's just keep it real. He is an enemy to humanity. Period.
Important to speak only for one thing.
And Trump is his goddamn fool. That's.
We have to understand. We don't want the sword war from Russia. I don't trust him, and I will not. And he also doesn't trust me. It's understandable. But this is the problem that, my feeling that his goal was occupation of all our territory, of all our country. And I really want to hear and to see that he will not come again.
Mr. President, we appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and then this came up now. So they had everyone come to the meeting. Trump had this, he likes to do this televised shit. He likes to make it seem like he's doing something. I don't know why he's faking like this. At this point, most intelligent people know that he's totally faking and that the only interest he has is in his own family and getting some money out of making some deal there. If he can get a deal, then he will try to get Putin to stop if there's something in it for him. If not, he has no reason to not give Putin everything that he wants because Putin has leverage on him. Obviously, Putin has a relationship with Trump. Trump did business in Russia, so you have these kind of ties between Russia and Putin Russia and Trump, excuse me. And this is in business with business people that are Russians. This is with the Russian mob, allegedly also, that rented out the top one of the, not the top floor, but the floor right under the top floor, which is just under where Trump's home was in the Trump Tower. These kind of relations, casinos, washing money, this kind of stuff. This has been going on since the 90s, the late 80s. You see what I mean? So these ties, you see, what do you call it? Washing money through construction projects, this kind of stuff out of New York, which is probably why he hates any type of, he hates Letitia James even more because he really fears her. Trump hates people that he fears, even if he may not even understand that he may not even know if they're coming after him or what they really have in their mind. But people that just don't go right along with him and show them that they're his friend right off the bat, he usually hates them right off the bat. Now, so they had this meeting. He talked to Putin before the meeting, right? He talked to Putin after the meeting. Okay, that comes out. We know that. But this will show you how much Putin is not really interested in peace. And I told you this. He vacillates too between seeming like he wants peace, to because why are you talking to Trump for 2 hours, if that's the case. And I understand why he would want peace, because you lost 1 million soldiers. I don't think Putin wants peace. I think what Putin wants is his ego to be saved and spared, because he's lost 1 million troops, 1 million Russian young boys trying to invade Ukraine, trying to invade a neighbor. So he's not, he wants war, but he wants to get away with it's his ego, with the fact that he's failing. Like, with all the help that he has had, and with minimal help from Trump. Trump has given Ukraine minimal help, minimal, if any at all. He's retracted and pulled back the help. It's embarrassing for any superpower to lose 1 million goddamn people invading a country that didn't really even have a strong army in the first place, didn't really have equipment in the first place, had to be trained to use equipment while you're fucking attacking them and invading them. I mean, that's an embarrassment. And I think that's what Putin is conflicted about. Peace would help his people stop dying, but his ego just won't really allow it. So he's kind of conflicted. He hates. Putin is controlled by hate. You see what I mean? He hates the Western world. He hates what it stands for, right? Because Russia's broke and the Western world isn't, right? The Western world, the EU is the second biggest economy on earth. It's teeter-totters between, maybe China is on the way up, it's very close to the EU, but the EU has 450 million people. So for a Western economy, it's set to go forward. It has a lot of manpower, has a lot of technology. And so they're set to go forward, right? The U.S. has 350 million people, so it has a little less people, so the manpower is less, right? So the potential with the manpower is less for the U.S., right? But the U.S. controls a lot of global trade, which Trump is throwing in the trash, right, through his actions. Now, Russia has 150 million people. That's far less. To lose 1 million motherfuckers in battle just with your neighbor, man, that's embarrassing. That is embarrassing. Raise your hand if you've ever made a decision like that, because I've never made no motherfucking decision where that much, has been lost at all. I would never hire you for nothing if your strategy is that poor. Like, goddamn, that's some piss poor goddamn military strategy. You lose 1 million motherfucking people. That is poor. That's total opposite of what you're supposed to be doing in a goddamn war. And you the one sending them out there. You should have a better strategy. That shit is fucked. But in any case, He had this conversation with Trump. He let Trump go out in the public and act like he's going out there to resolve some peace thing. Think about this. But the whole time Putin knew that he wasn't going to do it. Putin knew he was not going to do it.
Make it a habit.
And that is why, it's like, that this guy is just he's playing Trump, but it's not playing Trump out of genius. He's playing Trump out of something twisted in his fucking head. Like, he is, it is smart in some way. Yeah, if you could get the president, a future president, to be your Manchurian candidate, or be compromised, or be stupid enough to trust you, that's a good thing. But it's not stopping Russians from dying. And Russia has lost a whole lot of people. And usually a good general cares about the loss of his people. Putin does not. He's the odd man out. China cares more about the loss of their military people than Putin. Putin doesn't give a damn about Russia. So that's a different look. Western Europe cares about its people, dying in battle. So they're not trying to engage in all kinds of recklessness. Putin is, like, literally, he is that guy. That doesn't make him smart. That makes him crazy.
Is accusing Ukraine of attack.
So if he knew of these attacks, if he had this feeling about Ukraine attacking, then why did he even have the phone call in the first place? Why did he, you see what I mean? And now he comes out and he's saying he's using that as an excuse for no deal. You see what I mean? So he already had it in his mind. Secondly, the Russian army attacks civilians every day of the week. Every time they launch an attack, it's pretty much towards civilians. because they really want to have the media coverage. If they don't do that, it doesn't get in the media, because nobody's covering every attack on the front line. No one's covering, the media is not covering every engagement that Russian military is having with the Ukrainian military. Not like that. Not, so when you do this thing against civilians, it's guaranteed to get into the paper. But so you could see Putin is just back there manipulating. He's just back there manipulating. Trump could do something, but he's not.
Vladimir Putin's residences overnight. It's a claim that the Ukrainian President Zelensky strongly denies. CNN senior international correspondent Fred Pleitgen is joining us right now. Fred, you've spent a lot of time reporting from Moscow. What do you make of this accusation?
Yeah, it came from the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, Wolf, I would say about an hour, maybe a little bit more before or ago. And this was a press conference from Sergei Lavrov with some audio where he accused the Ukrainians of attacking a residence of...
So somebody said, is NATO winning the war? Who was this? NATO. Alvin said, NATO isn't winning the war. No, NATO's not engaged in the war. No NATO soldiers have died. No NATO soldiers have fired on Russia. No NATO soldiers have entered the conflict. What you're seeing is basically Ukraine. That's what you've been seeing. That still doesn't, for me, I don't know if that makes it any better that you lose 1 million people. Like, he lost 1 million people and NATO ain't even involved. He lost 1 million people against a military that had to be built while he was invading. That's not what the United States' problem is. They're not building a military. You see what I mean? That's not most people's problem. China, that's not China's problem. Nobody's invading them while they're building a military. Nobody's invading Iran while they're building a military. Nobody's invading. You see what I'm saying? Ukraine was literally making their military when they were invaded. So it's kind of like, if you have an expectation that Ukraine is supposed to have any success in stopping Russia, if that is your expectation, then you're not looking at the facts. They don't have a stockpile of weapons like Russia does. Most superpowers have a stockpile of weapons, and Russia did, although they're running out now. It takes time when you engage and you lose, just like you running out of people. Putin is running out of people. That's what Zelensky was just discussing. That's what Zelensky said on Fox News, and Fox News is right-wing, pro-Putin media. They have been pro-Russia against Ukraine the entire time. It's only recently that they flipped. They have been totally pro-Trump, totally pro-Putin, backing Trump up on giving this warm welcome to Putin. When other presidents turn their back on him, American presidents, this kind of thing, they discussed it. Zelensky said he believes that Putin doesn't want to try to enlist more soldiers. He doesn't want to call a draft because he knows it's bad politically because they've already lost so many soldiers. That is exactly what he said in that Fox News interview. And if you don't remember anything else he said, remember that. You see, now, so it is true. Russia has lost way more soldiers than any superpower has ever lost since World War II. Now, is this a world war? No, this ain't a world war yet because there's not engagement from every military in the world, right? There's no engagement from NATO countries. Ukraine is not a NATO country. Ukraine is a EU, is part of the EU now, right? But the EU doesn't have its own military, although Putin gave them a real good reason to build more weapons and become a military. And they've been instantly overnight moving very quickly towards that. You see what I mean? Putin has basically, got countries that have never mobilized their troops outside of their own country since World War II, has got them discussing how they will have to do this now. So Putin has been a catalyst for other countries arming themselves, making more weapons, building up on their weapons capacity, and creating and building weapons. That's what they're doing. They're spending loads of more money on weapons, and they build their own weapons and they sell their own weapons. There's one company I bought some stock in the other day. Let me see something. is a Norwegian company, and it's not one of the biggest European weapons companies. It's a medium one. It's just a medium one, right? But let me see here. Let me open this up just to give you an idea of what's been going on. The EU has released a lot of funds across the EU to countries to invest in more weapons. That's something that happened like a few months ago. But here, for example, let me see the company that I bought some stock in. Right. Okay. The market is open. It's a weapons company here among, it's good to invest in some stock, but the weapons company is called Kongsberg Gruppen, and they're a Norwegian company, if you haven't heard of them, right? And the Danish government just signed a big contract with them, right? To I think it's ballistic, it's defense missiles and things like that, right? That the Danish government, but this mid-ground weapons manufacturer, they have 13 different countries that buy weapons from them, many in the Middle East, some in South America, across the globe. You see what I mean? So some in Europe, you see what I mean? So but this is all new money that's being pumped into the system in the EU for every other EU country to start making more weapons, and it's all been because of Putin. So, I don't know if that was intended by Putin. It probably wasn't. He probably didn't anticipate it because the dude is a lunatic himself. He's not that brainy genius. He's a madman. And that's what you got to understand. Stop giving madmen more props than they deserve. Just because they can strong arm their own people and sell weapons to other people, you know what I mean, doesn't make them geniuses. You see what I mean? Russia is in deep, deep recession. Russian people have very, very hard, tough lives that most Americans would not want to involve themselves in. Most Western people would not consider good lives. I'm talking about economically, and I'm talking about materially, right? Russian people have far less rights, human rights and civil rights than Western people have. Very simple. And the U.S., they're challenging that. They're trying to fuck up civil and human rights in the U.S., for the first time in a very long time. Not that there hasn't always been issues, but this government, among all others, have just thrown it out the window, the idea of human and civil rights, in the U.S. So, I mean, it's a bad story. But in any case, let's just hear some more about Putin's excuse now.
Putin in the Novgorod region, which is fairly close to Moscow. Now, the Russians are saying that 91 UAVs, drones, were used in this attack, that these drones were shot down, and that there are no reports of casualties. Now, the Russians, of course, irate about all of this. Sergei Lavrov.
Oh, somebody said, what's the ticker? And you also asked, the same person asked, Mystic Pizza. Yeah, exactly. Whatever happened to that Pizzagate? Trump and them, they can't uncover, they won't release the Pizzagate files, will they? But in any case, here, the ticker is, it's Kongsberg Gruppen, ASA. The ticker is, let me see. What is the ticker called here? Well, wait a second. Let me see. If I just go to this, will it show me? Why doesn't it have the ticker? I'm not sure. It's not showing me the ticker in my app, but I think you can it has two tickers, by the way. It depends if you're buying from the US or from the EU, but let me see. You can just look Kongsberg Gruppen up. Let's see here. It's not hard to find. That's how I find it. Kongsberg Gruppen. Anybody can look the ticker up. You don't have to ask me about that. That's I'm going to do that for you. But I mean, come on, you can look up the Kongsberg ticker. Let me see. Kongsberg Gruppen ticker. Yeah, and the U.S. has been sending weapons, but that's not the same as having your soldiers on the ground using those weapons. They've been sending some weapons, and under Trump, they've been very limited, and under Biden, they've been very limited, okay? So here is the company, by the way, in case you want to see what company it is here. Just pull this up on your screen right here. You can see it. All right. This is Kongsberg Grouping. But this is just an example. The EU has a lot of, they have a lot of, damn, did I do that right? They have a lot of weapons making companies, and they sell weapons all over the world. I mean, you know, most people know this. Most people know this, that the EU sells weapons all over the world. Now, it doesn't mean that they've been making weapons for themselves and stockpiling a bunch of weapons, you know, because they haven't had to. But they have some. The larger countries have some, but they just don't have as much as the U.S. has. Now, Ukraine doesn't have is a weapons stockpile. That's one thing that puts them behind, because they have to spend a lot of time going around asking people for weapons, you know, to loan them weapons, to give them weapons, while Russia has weapons and is bombing them with the weapons. So listen, let's just be clear about this. No one in their right mind can think that what is going on between Russia and Ukraine is a fair fight. It hasn't been a fair fight. That just hasn't been a fair fight at all, you know. So just get that. It's been far from a fair. Russia has had the upper hand the entire time. Russia sent its military out on the, you know, out 150,000 military troops out on the border and told the entire world that they're not going to invade. And then they invaded. See, they could do that because they had the advantage, you know, that's what that is. And so it hasn't, there's no comparison between the two. Ukraine is alive because people did the bare minimum. That's why they're alive. And because the Ukrainian people fought and know what the stakes are and were willing to fight for their lives. That is why. That's why this war is still going on, because the bare minimum is what was done, because people didn't want to go into World War III. But see, there was plenty of people that thought they were smart asses and wanted to advocate for it. Yeah, fuck it, let Russia take Ukraine. Okay, is that what you want? Is that what you want? Yeah, it's Kongsberg Grouping. Is that what you want? Is that what you wanted? Because apparently you didn't understand that yet this could trigger World War III. I mean, you know, if that's what you want, if that's what you wanted, I mean, people said it. You can't say people didn't say it. The only thing you could say is that you didn't believe it. That's what you can say about it. You didn't believe it when it was said. Some people did believe it, like myself. Other people didn't, like people that voted for Trump. You know, just like same thing about
2025 almost in the books.
Same thing about
it's time
healthcare.
to take stock of the very tumultuous first year of President Trump.
Same thing about healthcare. You know what I'm saying? People didn't think their healthcare could get taken. I did. People didn't think the economy was going to go down when Trump came in office. I did. So I went and bought some gold as soon as he took office. Why? Because I wanted to make some money off of the situation. You know what I'm saying? Because I know when the U.S. economy goes down, people buy, when the dollar goes down, people buy gold. So why not buy it early so you can make some money off of it? And that's exactly what I did. And that's exactly what happened. And I made some money off of gold because Trump came in office, and I anticipated that would happen when Trump came in office. It's just really simple. It's just really simple, you know, and don't be afraid to admit that you didn't think the things that people were saying were true, because you voted on it. American citizens voted on it. They just voted on the wrong guy. And the things that people were saying about that wrong guy just turned out to be true. Just admit it. It only makes you a good human being. Don't be an asshole. Nobody likes a fucking asshole at this point. It's one thing to have made a mistake. It's another thing to know you made a mistake and be too motherfucking hard-headed to admit it. Now you're entering into a different category. You know, but let's listen again. And I'm talking about across not just the U.S. It's a lot of people in the EU that kind of didn't think it would come to the, you know, like for some reason was on the internet and soaking in the algorithm and not using their brain and just trusting this Russian disinformation. Now, okay.
The Russian Foreign Minister, Wolf, coming out and saying that the Russians are going to have to rethink their negotiating position, accusing the Ukrainians of terrorism. And the Ukrainians themselves, by the way, also very quick to react to all of this. In fact, Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, denying that the Ukrainians attacked this residence, claiming that the Russians are trying to stoke discord between the United States and Ukraine, of course, right after that very important meeting took place between Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago.
You know, this reminds me of a person that basically just doesn't want the blame. You know, Putin just doesn't want the blame, even though he is to blame. So even though he himself and Russia, fuck Putin, Russia needs a ceasefire. They need it more than anybody else, really, because they do have a lunatic at the helm. But Putin, you know, he needs that too, because he doesn't want to take the blame now. You see what I mean? And it's like, so he sabotages anything because he just caught between a rock and a hard place. Like, he wants it to look like he's the hero before the things are allowed to stop. Because if he doesn't look like a hero, it's going to all go bad for him inside of Russia. That's what this is about. Like, people are coming after Putin, basically. Russian people at this point, you know, that have gone through this, waited, seen their loved ones die, seen the country even go down even further more under Putin. I mean, they're fucking tired of Putin, yo. They're tired of Putin. And I'm gonna be quite frank, excuse me. I wouldn't give a shit if they did try to blow up his goddamn house, because this guy is a fucking nuisance. Like, he is okay with the Russian military attacking civilians, period. That's who you're talking about. So, you know, I don't give a damn about it. You know, I'm not even worried about it. And to me, it just seems like, you know, Putin, the thing that I'm focusing on is that Putin knew that would be his excuse. You see what I mean? If he wanted that to be, if that was if that meant no peace plan, then he should have just said that already, because he knew that when they were going into this meeting. You see what I'm saying? Like, he knew it already. That had already happened before the meeting happened. You see what I'm saying? Like, so it's just kind of phony, you know, this story, this media line, you know, it's like they're fishing the information out slowly. They're letting it drip out to the media, and everyone else has to witness it. Like, oh, okay, well, we were hoping it was peace, everybody, but now we're finding out that it's not going to be because Putin says this. You see what I mean? He's like taking people through these antics again. And I'm just going to tell you, the antics are not going to work. The antics are not going to work, because as long as Ukraine is being attacked, Western nations are going to continue to arm themselves and build up their military capacity and build up their actual military numbers, their weapons capacity and their numbers. And they're going to continue to send even more weapons to Ukraine. That is what is going to happen. And eventually, if some bad luck occurs, it could trigger World War III. Like, seriously, you know. So, you know, I mean, to me, it seems like the easiest thing to do is get rid of Putin. But, you know, okay.
Yesterday, so the Ukrainians unequivocally saying that they did not attack Vladimir Putin's residence, whereas the Russians are saying that this did happen, that they are going to rethink their negotiating position vis-a-vis the Ukrainians and trying to end the conflict in Ukraine because of this attack, Wolf.
So are they any closer at all right now to a deal to end this war?
Well, we just heard a couple of minutes ago, Wolf, that apparently President Trump just finished a phone call with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. We are still waiting to get some sort of readout from that, from the Russian side and from the U.S. side as well. One of the senior envoys of the Russians, Kirill Dmitriev, called these talks vital for peace, but it's unclear how much closer the sides really are to reaching some sort of agreement. One of the things that Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, said is he said that more than 90% of the sticking points, he believes, have been sorted out, but that there are still two key issues that have not been sorted out. One of them is the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, one of the biggest power plants, nuclear power plants in the world, currently held by Russia, but the Ukrainians obviously saying that this is their power plant, and what to do with that is still being sorted out. But the main issue remains the issue of territories and if and what territories the Ukrainians would have to cede to the Russians as part of any peace agreement. Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukraine's president, saying a referendum would be necessary in order to do that. However, he also says that for a referendum to happen, they need a 60-day ceasefire. The Russians are saying that is absolutely not going to happen. They believe that the Ukrainians are going to regroup, so it's going to be very interesting to see what President Trump and Vladimir Putin spoke about in that phone call and whether or not any.
So you could see right there in that the Russians are afraid that the Ukrainians, this is what they're saying. This is what they're saying to the media. Of course, it's a load of bullshit because they know they started the conflict. But they're saying that they don't. They're afraid that during a ceasefire, the reason why Russia is not so prone to wanting a ceasefire is because they believe, Ukraine will regenerate its weapons capacity. You see? It's very simple. So now this is where the flip-flopping begins. See, now Russia is afraid. It sees the Ukraine as a threat to them again. That's not power. That's not power. That's you seeing a smaller nation as a threat to your superpower status. That's what's going on here. And on top of it, Russia is aware that they have triggered something in the EU. And that is that the EU realizes that Trump and Putin has triggered something. They have triggered their, need to protect themselves now because Trump has taken the U.S. outside of a reliable partnership in NATO. So that's not stopping the EU from taking this situation in Ukraine serious. That's making them take it more serious. That's making them develop more weapons, put more of their economy into weapons, and send more weapons to Ukraine and prepare their militaries for other types of attacks, possibly from Russia directly. That's what it's making them do. What Trump and Putin are doing together, tag team, they could be triggering a World War III, like straight up. They are the actual cause of it. They're the actual cause. These two figures are the cause of it. You see, so just to be clear about that, and you heard it again, you can just hear it back. You can hear it. See, you can't be on two different sides. Very simple. You can't be on two different sides of it. You have to kind of know what you want out of it and work towards it in reality, right? Anything else is just below the bar. It's not, is not enough, right?
Going to happen. They believe that the Ukrainians are going to regroup, so it's going to be very interesting to see what President Trump and Vladimir Putin spoke about.
So in either case here, whether they have a ceasefire or not, the EU is going to, build up its military capacity to defend itself, and they're going to build up their weapons capacity to defend themselves. And that's what people are going to hear for as long as Trump is in power. For as long as Putin is in power, that's what people are going to be hearing about. The EU becoming more militarized, the EU creating more weapons, and possibly selling more weapons to others. Like straight up. This is what has been triggered between these two individuals.
In that phone call and whether or not any headway was made in that regard, Wolf.
All right, Fred Pleitgen reporting for us. Fred, thank you very much.
I want to just get your take on something that Fred Pleitgen, our reporter on the ground there in Berlin, mentioned. This idea that the Ukrainians believe that this is Russia's attempt to sow discord between the US and Ukraine. Also, they're using it as a pretense potentially for more attacks. And then also another pretense to get out of this potential peace plan. What's your take on that? Is this sort of a ruse, an excuse by Russia to try to wriggle out of this peace deal?
I think that's very possible, Zaid, and I think Fred's exactly right. These are, certain ways in which Russia has done this in the past. They try to create a situation where they will take an incident that may or may not have been a direct attack on the residence of Vladimir Putin, one of the residences of Vladimir Putin in the Novgorod region, and make it a bigger thing than it actually is. It could be that there was an errant drone that went there instead of to its intended target. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that it was a false flag operation, at least that part of it, that the Russians were using that, and they may have decided to go after, make it seem as if there was a Ukrainian drone, but it was really one of their own that they then shot down conveniently. But there are a lot of different things that we don't know yet, so there's obviously some degree of speculation here, Zane, but I would definitely say that the Russians have had the tendency in the past to try to wiggle out of these negotiations. They believe they have the military advantage right now, and they're going to do whatever they can to prosecute that advantage to, in essence, gain more territory in Ukraine, to gain a more advantageous negotiating position. Those are the kinds of things that they're seeking, and they think that they can do that, especially during these winter months.
Here's how developers at Perplexity and
All right. So, yeah, I could see, I don't know, is somebody, what is this? Ellis. We have fiber drone. You have nothing. Okay. Who's the you? I'm curious about what you mean by that. I'm an American citizen that lives in the EU, by the way. So I don't really know what the you means. Yeah. But, Putin, okay, let me see here. Dylan says Putin always talks about wiping out the UK with nukes. Exactly. Putin is just regularly and frequently over the years talked about, nuking, using a nuke against NATO, like straight up. And he's just done it as frequently and as easily as Trump has said a lot of his own bullshit too. Right. So, in a way, they parrot each other, and that's what I mean by lunatic. Nobody openly threatens using a nuke. What kind of leader does that? And let me just tell you, the ones that do it are generally weak ones, because real people, when they want to fucking hurt you, they do not project. You see what I mean? Projection is not the same as winning. Projection in this level, when it comes to military might, it's stupid. It's stupidity. You don't go out there and say, hey, look, everybody, look at all the weapons we got, y'all. See how powerful we are? We could destroy you if we wanted to. Why do you do that? Only a weak person does that. Russia is always out there every day. Guess what? Here's the new bomb we created. Y'all take a look. We could wipe the EU off of the map with this bomb. We could even hit the U.S. I mean, they're literally telling you what they have, and they don't have much either, to be honest with you. Like, don't get it twisted. Everybody has something somebody else doesn't have. Russia has disinformation, and and is good at that, and they have a good KGB operation. They like to have honeypots and things like that and turn over leaders, get blackmail, compromising shit and all of that stuff on them, right? But listen, what the EU has is money. They have a lot of money. And let me tell you, a lot of those Russian generals and a lot of those Russian people they would like a peaceful place to live, a place that's run normally, a place that's safe for the fucking kids, to live in without their car getting blown up. I mean, a lot of Russian people in Putin's cabinet would take the money too. You see what I mean? And leave. Plenty have. And I think you're going to see more of them when it comes to this kind of stuff. You got to understand, you might have nukes, but there's a lot of people inside of Russia that are also against Putin, but don't have the freedom to say so. So Putin is scared of people around him. He's not sure. Putin could give an order for a nuke to be launched. There's a likeliness that nuke would never get launched, is what I'm saying. You see, and it's because a lot of other things aren't working right. You might have a nuke, but you got to depend on people going out there and using those nukes. You know what I mean? And knowing that there will definitely be a response. Like, you have to understand, if Russia launches one nuke, the first minute it launches a nuke, do you understand how many missiles is going to be coming at its door? Just look at the map right here. The capital is not far from the capital is on the western side. You know what I'm saying? They definitely the EU can definitely hit. I mean, think about it. Where are you going to concentrate your weapons? You know what I'm saying? One of those places you're going to concentrate them is going to be the capital. You see what I mean? And you add all of those missiles coming back at you, you know, focusing on a few targets, some of them are going to hit hard. Like, make no mistake about it. Like I said, bragging about their weapons is not what the EU has been doing. That's what Russia has been doing. But strong people don't brag about what they got. You see what I mean? And also, only lunatics always go to the stick. I will beat you. I will destroy you. I will blow you up if you don't do things my way. Be scared of me. That's what weak people do. Weak people project that. And that is basically what Putin is. That's what he does. So everyone knows that. You think the EU doesn't have Russian spies? If you think that's the case, you're dumb. You're dumb, because they do too. You see what I mean? And, you know, there's going to be a whole lot of snitching going on pretty soon. That I would, you know, expect. You already see, you know, you saw the guy who Putin had, who was one of his main generals he sent to Africa to fight. Yeah, that general went down there and did some shit for Putin, right? Came back, and all of a sudden he turned against Putin and marched to the capital. And he almost he sent his troops to attack motherfucking Putin just from one day to the next. How did that happen? What is that guy's name? What's the dude? Hold on, let me see here. Matter of fact, let's pull this up, because let's have a little bit of fun. Who was the Russian general who turned on Putin and attacked Moscow, right? Or try to, let's see here. Let's remind people. I think, yeah, his name was Yevgeny Prigozhin. Exactly. The Warner Group lead dude. Here, let's do this. You know, the other thing is the EU has never wanted war with Russia. You know, that's been something that Putin has projected on other people. You know, everybody knows that you don't want, if you have Russia falling apart, it creates a lot of other problems. It creates, you know, it just does, right? So the EU has always been aware that since they're neighbors with Russia, a lot of the trash could flow over. A lot of the problems could come over, you know, if Russia fails as a nation. You see what I mean? Even because they have weapons, and when they fall, they will just sell those weapons to other people. That's really what a lot of this is about. So they haven't really been eager to attack Russia at all, but Putin has used that against them, right? And so here, but let me pull this up just to remind people, because maybe some people need to be reminded, and I understand that. Like I forget often, and I like to remind myself. But take a look at this. Speaking of that general, this is going to increase.
The Wagner March on Moscow is one of the most publicly documented incidents of the Ukraine conflict. More than 130 videos have been verified by Sky News and the Center for Information Resilience. The journey began in the southern city of Rostov-on-Don, Russia's logistics hub for its operations in Ukraine. This video shows the arrival of Prigozhin's troops. Armed Wagner soldiers, tanks and armoured vehicles took up positions in the city centre early on Saturday. Around the same time, Prigozhin shared footage of himself inside the Russian military HQ.
Yeah, this was a mutiny. And this is not even that many years. This is only a couple of years ago. Like, hold on, let me see. What year was this? This is in 2023, y'all. This is recent. This is part of the current environment of Russia. You see what I mean? And, you know, the same dude, one of his main dudes, committed mutiny, the Wagner Group, and went against the state. You know, again, how do you think that happened? How do you think that happened? You know, just out of curiosity, let me hear your views. How did that happen? How did he flip? How did the leader of the Wagner Group and Wagner Group people all flip on Putin? How's that possible? What happened? What happened? I'm going to wait. I want to see. I want to see. I mean, I can see what happened. You know what I mean? I can see what happened, but I'm curious. What's your theory about what happened? Why did Prigozhin flip on Putin and march his military? And march his military. Exactly. We paid him. And guess what? You're going to see a lot more of that money, because money is also power. Money, you got to think money is just a tool, just like a bomb is a tool. A bomb is not power. A bomb is a tool. If you know how to use it, you can get power with it. But if you don't, you won't. And money is the same way. Tools. There's many different type of tools. If you know how to use the tools correctly, you can get what you want. You see what I mean? So the EU has lots of fucking money. Their GDP, they're the second largest economy in the world. China is it's very, very close, and it could take over as the second. But right now, the EU has been the second largest economy. And keep in mind, the EU has 450 million people. So that's manpower. The US has 350 million people, manpower. Even though it's the biggest economy, manpower wise, it's not as big as the EU. Russia has 150 million manpower, 150 million people. That's it. So you have to factor these things in when you look at how this is going to play out. You see what I mean? I mean, make no mistake about it. The EU has a lot of tools, but they don't brag about the tools. Putin brags about his tools while he's lost 1 million people invading Ukraine. You got to understand something, and I live in the EU. I live in Denmark, but I'm an American citizen. Hey, I'm all with it. Myself, I'm all with it. People need to defend their homes. Denmark needs to defend itself. NATO needs to defend itself. Europe needs to defend itself. And it's not about, you're talking about democracy. You're talking about freedom. I mean, I voted just a month ago. There was local elections in Copenhagen, right? So I'm able to participate in the society. You know what I mean? And through a vote. So I believe in democracy. I have a fair life. I understand that autocracies and these kind of tyrants like Putin, they turn strong countries into weak ones. That's what they do. That's basically what they do. And that's what Putin has done to Russia. So I'm aware, why would you want a country and a leadership, a group, fucking up your life just because they don't know how to behave well, just because their leaders don't want to behave. They don't have the right to come and fuck up everybody else's life. You see what I mean? So, but let's hear some more of this. Let's hear some more of this. This was the mutiny that occurred against Putin. One of them.
Находимся в штабе. 7 часов 30 минут утра. Под контролем военные объекты Ростова, в том числе аэродром. Самолеты, которые уходят для боевой работы, уходят штатно. Проблем никаких нету. Санитарные борта уходят. Проблем нет. Все, что делается, это мы взяли под контроль, чтобы штурмовая авиация не наносила удары по нам, а наносила по украинцам.
I don't know what the hell he just said. I don't know what he just said, but I know one thing for sure. It had some consequences to Putin. Putin didn't like it. You see what I mean? Putin didn't like what he just said. And look at this. Somebody said, damn, look at this. This is some troll. Johnny boy, you're a damn troll. Russia's economy is better now than it ever was. And this is what I'm talking about. Russia's biggest weapon, their biggest weapon is trolls. You know what I'm saying? That's their biggest weapon. Make no mistake about it. Their most powerful weapon is actually trolls, and they use them frequently and people fall for it. Yeah. Americans fell for it. they fell for the Russian trolls, the Russian disinformation network. You know, and the EU, luckily they recognized the threat early because they saw how it was hitting the US, and they were like, no, we're not going to go through this bullshit, you know, and they actually threw people in jail, you know, for spreading disinformation. You know, yeah, I don't know how many Americans know about that, but that's been happening. You know, it happened in the U.S. The U.S. threw people in jail, and they threw some spies in, Russian spies in jail, spy networks and things like that. But I don't think a lot of the MAGA people understood it. A lot of the MAGA people didn't understand it. They were pro-Putin. Like, MAGA people were pro-Russian disinformation through QAnon, right? Through a number of networking sources online. You see what I mean? And they didn't realize it, but that's really what they were. They don't realize Russia is good at disinformation. That's their biggest weapon. That their most effective weapon is disinformation by far. You see what I mean? And they leaned on it hard, but the reality of it is that everyone didn't believe that disinformation. Look, you see, somebody else that was Russian was like not buying it, you see? And here.
Мы находимся в штабе, 7 часов 30 минут утра, под контролем военные объекты Ростова, в том числе аэродром, самолеты, которые уходят для боевой работы, уходят штатно, проблем никаких нету, санитарные борта уходят, проблем нет. Все, что делается, это мы взяли под контроль, чтобы штурмовая авиация не наносила удары по нам, а наносила по украинцам.
Later,
wait a second. Listen, I want to make that bigger because something was on the screen there that I didn't see. It was the translation. Hold on. Let me try to see this translation again. You know what I'm going to do? Yeah, let me play it again.
This clip was filmed at a car dealership on the outskirts. Around the same time, Prigozhin shared footage of himself inside the Russian military HQ.
All right, so he's inside the Russian military HQ at the same time this is going on. Let me see here. Russia rebellion, the Wagner March. Okay, Wagner overview. What happened during the mutiny? All right, so let me just go do the overview real quick. I didn't even read that. Okay, here's a clear breakdown. Wagner mutiny 2023 June. Founder, the leader of Wagner Group, Kremlin-backed mercenary army, former close ally of Vladimir Putin. Wagner fought for Russia in Ukraine, Syria, and Africa. Prigozhin publicly accused Russia's top generals of corruption and incompetence. What he did June 23rd to 24th, 2023, Prigozhin launched an army mutiny. Wagner forces seized Rostov-on-Don, right, a major Russian military headquarters, shot down Russian aircraft during the advance, marched towards Moscow, getting within 200 kilometers, about 125 miles. This was the most serious internal threat to Putin's rule in decades, you know, and it's basically going to happen again. Putin has pretty much guaranteed that. You see what I mean? Why? Because, you know, what has been triggered is that basically the EU has the politicians in the EU through Putin's aggressions have given them the moral, how can you say, clarity, moral fortitude, not fortitude, what is it? They now have the ability to explain to people that there is a real threat to their life. And Putin is helping them explain that by the constant threats, by the constant drone attacks, the hybrid attacks, right? By the constant, cutting of cables, communications, sabotage, these kind of things. They're easily able to explain to the citizenry of Europe that, hey, they're really under threat right now, and they have to respond. They have to build up their defense and their military capabilities again. That has to be a priority for the EU. They weren't able to do that before. So Putin has given them a political agenda, an ability to move that forward politically. You see what I mean? And yeah. But in any case, here, why he turned on Putin. Russia's military leadership, defense military, Sergei Show and General Valery Gerasimov, damn, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, Gerasimov, lied about the war in Ukraine. You hear that? Lied about the war in Ukraine. So Putin's efforts, what they've been doing in the Ukraine on a military part, you know, I believe that's part of where the criticism is. They were lied to about it. You see what I mean? So you got to understand something. Russia has lied a lot about what's been going on. Like, you know, that's one of their frailties. That's one of their weak points, right? Because once their own people figure it out, you know, obviously they turn against Putin. All right. Wagner was deliberately starved of ammunition. See, didn't I tell you this? Think about this. I said this earlier. You know, Russia has been known for doing this, supplying people for weapons, but when they get into conflicts, then they abandon them. Russia has that history of doing that and sabotaging things. Like, I'm just saying, look, you know, think about this. And this has been said, you know, when people talk about Africa and they talk about the Western powers in Africa and they talk about the 60s, right? When they had all these independent movements, you know, great, wonderful for the independent movements, and congratulations to Africa for having those movements, right? But there's some elements there that need to be examined. You know, you don't need to repeat people. You don't need to repeat propaganda, right? A lot of propaganda gets pushed that Russia, you know, that we have to have some beholden, Africa has to have some beholden relationship with Russia where they owe Russia something. No, don't ever give credit to Russia for any independence movement in Africa. Give yourself the credit, because others did it for their own reasons, not you. You have to understand that. And this has happened in the history of Africa. Look, you know, Russia was going to protect and send weapons and have relationships with a lot of people that all of a sudden the protection or the weapons didn't show up on time. You know, that you should know. Like that you should know. And Russia has always been pretty bad at not overstepping their bounds and doing more than what they can do, what they can actually produce and back up and sustain. Russia has always, that's been one of their weaknesses throughout history, like flat out. Now, militarily, you know, as far as the military activity. Now, Wagner deliberately starved of ammunition. The invasion itself was based on false pretense. This is the criticisms of Prigozhin. Okay. He criticized Putin indirectly at first, blaming the generals, but the mutiny itself directly challenged Putin's authority. So there you have it again, challenge Putin's authority. So there are many that understand what's going to happen if you do that. This is the state of Russia. If you challenge his authority, you're going to end up dead pretty much if you don't challenge it correctly. That's what's going on in Russia. You see, it's not that people aren't looking to do something about it. They're very pissed off at Putin right now, but Putin's inner circle is hard to break and hard to turn, but they've been turning, and the ones that turn get killed. That's what's going on there. But make no mistake about it, Putin's not looking strong in Russia. It's just that if you say something, you die. How it ended. After 24 hours, Prigozhin abruptly called off the march. The deal was brokered by Belarus, by the president of Belarus. That's who brokered the deal, right? Well, he ended up dead. Good work, Belarus. Prigozhin ended up dead. You helped him, huh? Okay. Wagner forces halted and withdrew. Prigozhin was supposed to relocate to Belarus, right? This is interesting. What happened to Prigozhin? August 23rd, 2023, Prigozhin was killed when his private jet crashed in Russia. Okay. U.S. and Western intelligence agencies concluded it was almost certainly an assassination, widely viewed as Putin eliminating a threat, which is quite often. So in any case, that was one of the mutinies, and that's 2023, and that was the leader of Wagner Group, which is Russia's private military, but they're a formidable group. You see what I mean? And So look forward to more of these incidents occurring across Russia, in Russia right now, because the EU, one of the weapons they do have is money. They have a strong economy. They have more money to spend. They have 450 million people that are all paying in taxes into the same EU pool. They have their own state budgets that people pay taxes into, and then some of the money goes to the EU taxes. All the EU nations pay into that fund, and they're funding their own projects. And weapons creation and military capacity is like number one project right now in the EU. The EU has a strong infrastructure, but in a lot of other ways, very strong, stronger than the U.S. has infrastructure. Yeah, in case you didn't know that. Yeah. It does. So they're able to now focus a lot on military and weapons, and yeah. So anyway, let me just hear a little bit more about what they're saying here.
Assuming that this peace plan hasn't completely derailed based on this latest lines that we're just getting here, Zelensky is talking about the fact that he's actually willing to bring up this plan for a referendum, assuming that there can be some kind of 60-day temporary ceasefire.
Okay, so yeah, I think we heard all of this before. Yeah, they want to do that, and that's brilliant of Zelensky to do, right? Because it shows that, hey, it's not about him; it's about the Ukrainian people, and that's one of the criticisms that Putin keeps throwing out there, that Trump keeps throwing out there, and so they even had an election not too long ago because of the same criticisms. So or a referendum, something, right? But now they're talking about it. Hey, if you can get a peace deal going, and there can be a pause in the fighting, then we can do that. We can have that election. But Putin is so weak. You see, Putin is so fearful. He's so fearful of Ukraine, right? That, he don't want it. He doesn't want it to happen. So now let me just flip over to one more thing. I think the strategic objective. Let me see here.
You have it.
Let's see here. 2 seconds. Let me look at the chat real quick and see what y'all talking about. Dennis is, hold on. Oh, damn, the chat is moving fast. Let's see here. Yeah, Magnum were mercenaries, Tech. Exactly. Johnny Boy says Zelensky can go back to wearing tights and start dancing again. Hey, but here's the thing, man. He knows more serious people than you do, because he's got every world leader on his telephone dial, even Trump. Who do you have? Trump wouldn't even let you in the building, man. Like Johnny Boy, like straight up. So regardless of what you wear, you ain't good enough, man. Remember, you're here among the average people. You see, Zelensky is able to contact Trump. You know what I mean? He's actually bringing a war to Putin, basically. He's defending his country. What are you doing? What country you live in? What country did you defend? I mean, like seriously. Well, I mean, if you were in the military, let us know. It's all good. I'm curious about that. But I know Zelensky, with what he has, he's doing a better job than most people probably would, in all fairness. And this motherfucker is crazy. Look, Johnny Boy says, so Johnny Boy basically, here we go. Let's see here. No worries, because I have a lot of adults in the chat. So I want to keep the conversation real. I don't want trolls. I try not to time people out too often, but when I see somebody is just trolling, that's what I'm starting to do. I don't have my mods here today. So just to allow other people to have a real conversation about the topics. Obviously, the troll doesn't want that to happen. That's the main goal for the troll. So, but let me hear what they have to say here. Let's see here.
Well, very good morning. Good to see you in the studio with us, Sean. What do you make of where we are about this? I mean, thorny issues, territory is a big one, isn't it? Just tell us why it's so difficult.
Yeah, I mean, Trump mentioned that. I mean, my first call is that it's really interesting to see. I think the strategic objective of the meeting was to keep Trump on side. The dynamic seems to have worked, and that seems to have prompted Putin to get on the call at all sorts of announcements this morning. Those sticky points, though, as you say, territory is the key one, map behind us. Why are we worried about a small bit of territory that, in relative terms to what Russia's already taken, is quite small? Mainly because those three towns, Sloviansk, Kramatorsk and Kostiantynivka, are fortress towns. If they fall, there's a gateway into the rest of Ukraine. Why are they difficult to take? Well, if you look on the map, Bakhmut was back in 2022, took nearly over a year to take 30,000 lives. Pokrovsk has been over a year. So by most military analysts believe that although it's only three towns, they are very well fortified. It will take at least 2 to 3 years to take those. And therefore, that's a long time and a lot of casualties. The other reason to territory, your last guest alluded to, if we look at Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, again, why are people interested in a nuclear power plant? First of all, it's the biggest in Europe. Secondly, it's all about energy. Just imagine if we lost a huge chunk of our energy in this country, your industry, your chance to recover, how do you provide heat and warmth in the winter? That is absolutely crucial, and therefore it will be a very key negotiating point because Ukraine will not want to lose control of that.
Yeah, so yeah, you could see that this is basically Putin. He's put himself in a situation where it's not going to work. He wants it all or nothing. Only a madman does that, you see. And again, he's projecting weakness because he's afraid all the time. You know, his whole argument the whole time is NATO's encroaching on me, but then he attacks Ukraine. Okay, so which one are you? Are you we're going to nuke you if you do this? But then he loses 1 million soldiers trying to invade Ukraine for years. For like 4 years now. What the fuck? That's just 1 million in the last invasion, the one that started under Biden. This is just a couple of years. He's lost 1 million goddamn soldiers. So he's never going to stop. He's not going to stop until Russians make him stop, and the EU and somebody else pays some Russians to stop it. You see what I mean? Essentially, at the end of the day, that's how it's probably going to go down because, you know, of course, you won't be able to prove it, but dude is a madman. He's in the way of people now, squarely in the way. And, you know, once you get people to direct this much attention towards you and you don't have anything productive to offer, eventually they're going to get tired of you. And, you know, even China, like I said before, even China may end up owning half of Russia after this because they are totally indebted to China. And, you know, parts of Russia did used to be China, by the way. Just if you want to know about Russian colonization, they colonized parts of it. You see what I mean? That shit is crazy, yo. So the main thing is that when you have a madman, you know, when you have a narcissist, you know, if you don't show strength, you know, they will take you on a ride. And I think that is the lesson that people have to learn. It's you know, it's not about how much power they really have. It's about how much power you give them, you know. But this shit is crazy. But in any case, let's wrap that part up. Now, I don't know how many folks actually filled this out. Let me see how many people filled this out. Okay, the poll says, the question was in the poll, is the FBI covering up the Epstein trafficking ring? 83% of people said yes. 17% of the people said no. I hope everybody in the chat filled that out because, you know, then we can go back to that later and review it. The chat is on replay for those that don't know. And yeah, that means when the live stream ends, you'll be able to go back and see the live chat in about an hour or an hour and a half, something like that. It will reappear and you'll be able to see it in the live stream when you replay it. Now, it's a couple of other things I wanted to cover before we get out of here. Let me see. The measles outbreak, that's one of them. That's crazy, right? There's measles in the United States of America just because of Trump. Now, let me see. Let me pull this. Yeah, and the Trump administration, they don't take, you know, these are the anti-vaxxers, right? The anti-vaxxers are, you know, they're basically, yeah, you know, they don't want measles in public schools in certain states anymore. You know, they have this idea that, you know, for people that don't know, I believe the United States, it got its vaccine program let me see. When did it start as vaccines or where? Well, it's important for people to know. I don't know if it's the United States or what, but so I don't want to overspeak, but essentially how vaccines came about in the Western world, right? It's an old practice if people don't know what it is. When sicknesses spread, right? And people observed that, in certain villages or in certain clans, sickness would spread through certain tribes, and they would observe people die, and they would observe people living that survived the sickness. And this is what I was told. You can look it up. I'm not really that much into science. I am a little bit at times, but like I said, I like to review things too. So I haven't looked into this in a while. So, excuse me if I'm not accurate about it, and let me know if I'm accurate. I can always look it up again, but I believe the premise comes from an old practice. So just for people that want to know about vaccines and what the idea is. When you find a person that survives a sickness, when you see a bunch of people died, but there's one that lived, okay, that means the antibody could also live in them. So what people would do is take blood from that person and ingest that blood themselves. That's what essentially it is, because you would be ingesting also the antibody. You see what I mean? Now, let me look this up real quick. And I know that sounds a little crazy, and maybe it is. Maybe it is, because like I said, I haven't really looked into this in a while, but I'm talking about the basic premise of it, right? That you take it from a survivor, a weaker form of the same disease, you see, and you inject that weaker form of the sickness into a person's body, and then let that flow, and then, that becomes the vaccine. Now, let me see here. Let me just pull this up real quick while I do this. Origins of vaccines. Now, so in any case, in relation to the U.S., they're actually just getting rid of it, and from one day to the next, somebody decided that vaccines are no good, and we don't need these. That's just another hoax. That's what they decided in the United States of America. So you can imagine they don't really know what the fuck is going on with anything else, with healthcare. They don't know what's going on with a job that pays a living wage. They don't know what's going on with housing for the homeless. They don't know what's going on with healthcare. They don't know what's going on with Ukraine. They don't know what's going on with a whole lot of shit, because they don't even know what's going on with vaccines. You know what I'm saying? It's just a hoax. Ancient practices before 1000 in China, 1000 CE, and India, people practice variolation, deliberately exposing healthy individuals to material from smallpox sores, often dried and inhaled. This often caused a mild illness and immunity, but it was risky. Okay. So, in any case, this is the premise of it, and there's different versions of the same story. Maybe some say India, maybe some cite another time point in another place. And then, of course, how you got it, how your own program in your own state started working with it actively is another story, right? What was the thing that inspired them, right? You can see here, vaccination, 1796, Edward Jenner, England, observed that milkmaids who caught cowpox, a mild disease, did not get smallpox. You see? So what do you do about that, right? Right? He inoculated a boy with cowpox material and later showed he was immune to smallpox. You see? There it is. That's all it is. So they don't want that happening in the U.S. anymore. It's a terrible thing. It's ridiculous, and you see the effects of that. Now, let me see here. Let's go on. I just want to cover a few stories, and then I'm going to be out of here. Let's see. We covered this one with Trump, right? We covered this with Trump. Let me mute it. Yeah, we covered that one with Trump. Trump was a hypocrite. He flip-flopped on Ukraine. You have his own words, right? Now, let's go. Let me go. Did I miss this? Am I in the right place? Let me see. I just want to go through a couple of stories in the shorts, and then I'm going to be out. I appreciate everybody for coming out. Click the like button. It helps more people come into the stream. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you like what you're seeing or hearing, right? And if you hear and you spent some time here, then obviously there's something you like about it. So go ahead and do yourself a favor and, subscribe, and I'd appreciate it a lot. So let me start with this one right here. Here we go. Let's start with this one.
Just one little extra year of these ACA subsidies. You want to know why? What's happening next year? Midterm elections. They want to extend these subsidies just a year extra so that people don't realize the dupe that they are pulling on everyone, so that they can all reelect themselves and allow those things to expire the moment that they win reelection. And it is time to get politics out of what should be a guaranteed universal right in the United States of America, and that is health care.
Right. So a lot of Republicans right now, what's gone on with MAGA Mike Johnson and this whole thing about killing the healthcare, it's pissed off the MAGA people. Half of the MAGA people said this is enough. Sure, this guy was loony, but I was willing to go along with it a little bit. But this thing with healthcare is hurting my mother, it's hurting my father, it's hurting my sister, it's hurting my kids. The buck stops here. And so that's what happens. So they're abandoning them, and the Congress on the right is starting to see that in the Republican Party. So a lot of them are shifting their tone now because of the midterms are coming up. They're not going to get elected if they go against health care. They know that. So what's happening is that they're making a phony offer to work with Democrats on health care. And this is what she's speaking about. She's saying, no. Healthcare is a basic right. Everyone should have it, and every citizen should have it in the United States. It's just like they have across Western Europe, just like they have in Canada, just like they have in NATO countries. Why is the U.S. different, and why are we paying more for less? So she's saying she want to have a real conversation about this, and people need to be aware. Do you want to have a real conversation about healthcare in the United States of America? If you want to have a real conversation about it, right, where everybody gets it for cheaper, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't, put a 2 in the chat. Very simple. And let's see what people say. I'm going to let that play one more time here.
And so I will not accept a measly 1-year acceptance, a measly 1-year extension of the ACA. We need to make sure that we are expanding and continuing the fight and not falling for the fine print, not falling for the tricks, and not falling for the politics around this. Republicans want to sign on to just a 1 little extra year of these ACA subsidies. You want to know why? What's happening next year? Midterm elections. They want to extend these subsidies just a year extra so that people don't realize the dupe that they are pulling on everyone, so that they can all reelect themselves and allow those things to expire the moment that they win re-election. And it is time to get politics out of what should be a guaranteed universal right in the United States of America, and that is health care. And so I will not accept a measly 1-year acceptance, a measly 1-year extension of the ACA. We need to make sure that we are expanding and continuing the fight and not falling for the fine print, not falling for the tricks, and not falling for the politics around this. Republican.
Right. So there you go. So let me see how many people who said this now. Let's see. Okay. Do people want to have y'all talk about Patel. Oh, get out of here with this. Oh my God. It's still people can't get in their mind about Putin, man. This is crazy. In any case, it's likely not a lot of Americans in the chat. I can see right here. Because I didn't get it. Okay, I saw Oaken. He put a 1. He want to have long hair hippie. Oh, there you go, long hair hippie. I appreciate that. Also, Oaken, thank you, man. Hermit, right? You all agree there should be a conversation, a real conversation about healthcare. Let me see. Somebody from Canada said in Canada has less than 1% of Americans fending off facts. Yo, yeah, man. U.S. I'm an American, so I'm allowed to criticize in ways that some people probably don't want to, right? Or maybe some Americans won't hear it if you criticize if you're not American. And that's why I'm here. I'm an American. I live outside of the U.S., so I'm going to criticize. My family on both sides of my family is from the colonial period in the U.S. I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C. I'm a proud American myself. I'm happy to be American, although I live overseas, and I can acknowledge the great things that I have in my life because of where I live, and I love the place that I live. It's one of the blessings of my life to live here in Denmark, like straight up. It's part of who I was as a person, a young person traveling, working in music, working in art, and I traveled to a lot of places in my country and outside of my country. So Denmark just somehow came into the path later, and when I came into my 30s, basically. It was just a stroke of luck. You see what I mean? Traveling around Europe, and Denmark happened to be a place. And I was like, you know what? This is an interesting little place here. It's kind of weird, but it's cool at the same time, And then the more I learned about it, the more I realized, actually, every society, people complain. People complain in Denmark about a lot of stuff. But the basics, you have to give Danes respect for this. They have the main things right. The main things that any society would want to have, Denmark has them right. You know what I mean? And as an American, I can give them that. That's part of the deal. You see what I mean? And as an American, my duty is to share with other Americans what that is about. You see what I mean? So that's what I'm here to do, to cross that bridge. Again, people complain about a lot of things, and that's part of democracy. Let's continue to do that. But how we deal with it should be through democratic means, right? Should be through social democratic means, if you ask me, ones that value human and civil rights. You see what I mean? But democracy, and Denmark's pretty strong on these things, in comparison to a lot of other places. But every place has issues. But I just think it's ridiculous for me to not acknowledge the strong, right things, good things that are going on, because Americans didn't really respect the country they live in. You look at how they voted. We disrespected some of the good things we have, and now look at what we got: a lunatic in office because we didn't represent our vote. We didn't respect our vote. Only a third of the population didn't even fucking vote. That's as many people that voted for Trump and voted for Kamala Harris. A third didn't vote at all. Come on. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. We got a lot of work to do. So, but let me get back into this one now. The next story is this.
Republicans.
Stop that shit. Goddamn. You heard of this story right here. This is the story of, let me see, where is that? This is the story of the news reporter, right? Who Trump was following. Trump is actually following. The FBI was following this lady, and and this is the one who broke the damn Epstein story, and they had the nerve to be following her under the Trump in 2019, under his first administration, after she had this huge story about Epstein. For some reason, they wanted to follow her. Like, it doesn't make any sense. The FBI under Trump wanted to follow this lady. That makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, that is pretty scary. That's pretty scary. But let me close this up so you can see what it's saying here. Why isn't it not bigger? Let me see something. Oops, close that down. Right. Why is it not playing? All right. Well, I will read it here. What it says is, this is Julie. The journalist was named Julie K. Brown, right? Julie K. Brown. Let me go back. Damn. Oh, okay, here we go. Julie K. Brown, and she posted this just a few days ago, right? Does somebody at the DOJ want to tell me why my American Airlines booking information and flights in July through 2019 are part of the Epstein files, right? And attached to a grand jury subpoena, as the flight itinerary includes my maiden name, and I did book this flight. Why was the DOJ monitoring me? Yeah, they were monitoring her flights, and this is the journalist that broke the Epstein story. Like, seriously, in 2019. I mean, why were they doing that? This is under Trump. You see what I'm saying? So that's another big story that's going on right now. People are asking questions, and the sequence of events, that happen is even more suspicious. She breaks a story. She's being followed. Epstein's in jail, and he dies after that. I believe that's how the thing played out. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but also do your own. Anybody listening to me, I always tell people, do your research too. Don't just listen to me or believe me about anything. Go follow up and you do some research also. Don't just disagree, because I'm not here just, saying shit out of my mouth. I'm actually showing you the references. You see what I'm saying? To most of what I'm saying, and I can provide a reference for anything that I'm saying. And if I'm not 100% sure about what I'm saying, I have the class to actually tell people that live on air, and I do all the time. And I've even done it today where it's parts where I'm not quite sure about or something I forgot. I say that. That's nothing. That's just what a normal person is supposed to do that's interested in topics. Now, here's another one, right? This is Denmark. Some news about Denmark. People can't see this one, right? Let me see. Let me go make this smaller. Denmark, this is an example of how Denmark is dealing with immigration, right? And as you can see here, I said that Denmark, the U.S. has no standard minimum wage, right? Now, Denmark doesn't have a minimum wage, but it has a strong workers' rights. You see, so the worker rights that exist in Denmark. Here we go. Am I getting this right? Here we go. Okay. Let me see something. I need to make this one smaller. That's what it is, so it can fit on the screen. Sorry about that. A lot of the labor market in Denmark, most of it is controlled by unions. So even though there's no minimum wage, the wages are monitored another way and kept up to date and kept up to par pretty much, right? So a lot of people forget that immigration, comprehensive immigration reform, having a standard wage, having a wage that works across your country, knowing what that wage is, that means what kind of job you expect a person to fill and how much you expect them to pay. And, in Denmark, this story, guess what it's about? It's about the requirement being when you do have a job here and you want to migrate here because of a job, that the job that is hiring you pays a certain amount of money. That's a requirement. Right. But, in the U.S., when we talk about immigration, look at how the minimum wage across the country varies. Texas is $7. In a lot of states in the U.S., it's only $7. So how does that affect your immigration? How does that affect immigration when your wage in some countries, in some states, is only $7 an hour, and then another one is $20 an hour? How do you manage that as a nation? It's confusing. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't help. It doesn't fucking help. But this is a story about, just tapping into that. Denmark updates income statistics. Let me take my image off. Denmark updates income statistics for foreign workers applying for jobs starting in January 26. So this is one of the latest stories coming out of Denmark. Now let me let that play a little bit. What does it say here? Positive list for skilled workers is a list of skilled professions experiencing a shortage of qualified professionals in Denmark. All right, so let me just play it a little more and go on to what it says next. Where is this at? Here we go. All right. Denmark has updated income statistics with information from a third quarter of 2025, which will apply to applications made by foreign workers beginning January 1st, 2026. That's tomorrow. No, 2 days from tomorrow. That's 2 days from today. I'm sorry. Danish Immigration Agency, Asiri, updates the income statistics each quarter, and the next update will apply from April 1st. Oops. Damn. I missed that. Now, let me see here. As foreign workers, you apply for a residence or work permit after 31 December 2025. Denmark will evaluate your application according to the income statistics from the third quarter of 2025. If you apply between October, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's some details. Now, look, when you apply for residence and work permit in Denmark based on salaried work, it is a condition that your salary corresponds to Danish standards. You see that? That it corresponds. Your salary corresponds to Danish standards. So what are the American standards? What are the American standards in that regard? What is the salary for an American? What is the standard going to be? You see what I mean? And just don't get me wrong. I know Danes might debate this a little differently, and that's understandable, right? But I'm asking from a different perspective. What do Americans? What's their standard for income wage? Tell me, what is that? I would really like to know what that is, because the U.S., we don't really have it. I don't think we have it because it varies throughout the country. So you could see already on comprehensive immigration reform, we have a lot of work to do because we don't even know what the preferred immigrant really should be, right? I mean, it could be up in the air. This is a hole in our immigration, essentially, But let me go on. What's the next story here? There's another story that's a serious one. This guy, got shot with a bow and arrow. Let me see here. This is not it, but hold on 2 seconds.
Yes, and I met him.
Right, this is the Epstein victim, right, who is talking about Trump.
On several occasions, Ghislaine Maxwell did introduce me to him, and she introduced me to him with a clear message of my being with him in the same way that she had trafficked me and brought me to Jeffrey Epstein.
You met Donald Trump, is it right, through Ghislaine Maxwell?
I did, yes, and I met him on several occasions. Ghislaine Maxwell did introduce me to him, and she introduced me to him with a clear message of my being with him in the same way that she had trafficked me and brought me to Jeffrey Epstein.
You met.
Right, so that's another victim for Trump coming out, speaking out. She's saying flat out. Now, this goes back to the question I was asking, saying earlier. I mean, is the FBI, are they doing anything about this? I mean, check this out. So is the alleged victim, okay, wait a second. Here, the FBI has not identified all of the Epstein victims photographed, right? So check this out. So if they haven't identified all the victims photographed, right, then why aren't they aggressively interviewing people like this? Why aren't they doing that?
Is it right, through Ghislaine Maxwell?
I did, yes, and I met him on several occasions. Ghislaine Maxwell did introduce me to him, and she introduced me to him with a clear message of my being with him in the same way that she had trafficked me and brought me to Jeffrey Epstein.
You met Donald.
So you see, that doesn't make sense. Right? That doesn't make sense. They don't seem to be aggressively trying to figure out, because if there's people that say that, it's one thing to allege and to not have proof. But the FBI is saying openly that they can't identify. They can't identify all the people in the photographs, right? And then on top of it, there's a million more files that they have to go through that they said they didn't go through, didn't even know about under this DOJ. This Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, they are claiming that they're just now finding a million more files that they didn't know anything about. How many of you all believe that bullshit? I mean, do you believe Pam Bondi and Kash Patel on this one? I mean, what a coincidence. I mean, you ran on it and you just all of a sudden, here we go, a million more files. We're supposed to take you serious about Ghislaine Maxwell. You put her in a cushy cell, but yet you're the same people that just, here goes a million more files we didn't know about. They're just stumbling through this in a horrible way. I mean, put a 1 in the chat if you agree. if you believe Pam Bondi and Cash Patel. Put a 1 in the chat. Put a 2 in the chat if you think this is the most bullshitty group of people, bullshitting the American people that you've ever met in your life. You know, I'm going to put a 2 in the chat because I know these are the most bullshitting people. You know, come on. It's like, come on. How do you have photographs that you can't even identify, but you're not identifying victims, but you're not aggressively trying to interview the people that say they're victims? You're not aggressively trying to even find, even the woman that wrote the letter. They haven't even said nothing like, we're going to contact this lady who said her baby was thrown in Lake Michigan or whatever. They haven't even said they're going to contact her. You know, they haven't even said jack about it. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, you know, but I mean, that's just one of the latest news. And again, we don't have time for all this shit. Nobody have time to cover all this news. This is a lot of goddamn news. This is a whole lot of news. Oh, let me see something here. I gotta remember to put on, I don't want to trigger this copyright thing. Now, this is, again, JD Vance apologizing, telling people that, you know, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore in America. Listen to my fellow white people out there in the United States of America. You know, first of all, this whole scam about race has been put on to people through, you know, the 1700s, 1600s, where all of this racial, you know, these racial things came into play, this false science, you know, where they tried to create different racial groups and shit like that. And this was taught in universities in the Enlightenment period. So the whole world has been lied to about that. Today with DNA, they know the difference. But having said all of that, JD Vance doesn't live in the modern day DNA world. He doesn't live in the science world. So he felt this way, apparently. He felt like he had to apologize for being white. But listen, again, I said this numerous times. Why don't we just assume that everybody in some way feels bad about who they are, or has been made to feel bad in some way by somebody about who they are? Why can't it just be a collective thing? Why can't it just be nobody should have to feel like that? Should have to feel like they have to apologize for who they are, their ethnicity or their racial, not racial. I don't even like that word, but their look, their color look, you know, their hair texture look, their, you know, their physical appearance. You know, why can't it just be like that for everybody? And really, why can't you extend that to other ways of life? Like, why do we have to belittle each other in that way? Like, I just think human beings have been taken on a ride with this kind of stuff. And you know, it's one thing to examine history. Like me, myself, I believe history is a beautiful thing to research. Real history, global history, the history of mankind, the history of our existence as a species, right? But it's also important to update your knowledge. And what I've learned out of my study is that I've learned a lot of the lies that I've been taught. That's one of the things I've learned with the help of study and with the help of science. You know, science has been able to evaluate itself and determine that some of the shit it was teaching was bullshit, right? Science has done that. The science community, that is a standard practice in the science community. That's why it's a beautiful thing. It is looking for errors and faults and wants it to be disproven if it's false, right? And is updating when it is proven to be false, you know? And so this kind of thing, the fact that we live in 2025 and we just can't realize that, look, how you look is not dictating your heritage. How you look today, it doesn't really show people much about what your real history is in your family bloodline or any of that. It doesn't. You could look like JD Vance and find out that you had a great granddaddy that was coming from, you know, fucking Gambia, like straight up. You don't know. You don't know. If you don't take a DNA test, you won't know. And I'm talking about a valid one, a real one. You really won't know. A lot of people should do that. You know, of course, there's some people that have been just standing in one place for a long time. That's probably not likely because most people migrate because of survival in one way or the other. Maybe they wander within a certain area, of course, but very few people stay. Just stand still in one geographical place today. So in any case, and with the history of the United States of America, I don't even know why J.D. Vance is even saying this shit. It's like, listen, man, just understand that Native Americans were made to feel bad about who they were, their culture, their look, their behavior. They were called savages, J.D. Vance. Don't you understand that was put on them for centuries? Don't you understand that, J.D. Vance? You're not the only one that felt bad for who you are. Don't you understand Africans were made to feel bad about who they are in these teachings, made to be told that their faces, their features were ugly, made to be told that they're lesser of human beings? Don't you realize that you weren't alone, J.D. Vance? You're among them too, so you don't have to be so pissed off about DEI. You're one of them now. Like, join the club. So why can't we get to the point where we just understand, yeah, different people got different things, and let's acknowledge these things so we can all, and it shouldn't be one way. It should be always with everybody. You know what I mean? So, wherever the issue is, let's get to dealing with it like civilized people. Let's get to deal with it like civilized people. But you can see J.D. Vance, he's not there to lift everybody up. He's not there to consider all perspectives. He's there to be a moron. So that's the J.D. Vance story that's coming out. Yeah, J.D. Vance, he made it. He's a superstar, by the way. What the hell is that? Okay, so now here's Nicki crazy ass Minaj. Like, this is amazing. Like, she has found a way to promote herself again. I mean, look, let's take this off. Jesus, they have, now that she talked all this shit at the Charlie Kirk summit or whatever the hell that was, right? I'm sure a lot of you saw this. Yeah, she is getting people somebody opened up. Somebody opened up a change.org petition to have her deported. And this is after she capped for Trump. And it has 14,000 signatures. You guys need to Google this. Sign it if you like. I think she deserves it for what she said. What she's backed up. She's backing up MAGA, who has been deporting American goddamn citizens, who has been deporting fucking people that clean toilets, just to, that are happy to clean a toilet, happy to pick fruit, happy to do things that other Americans don't want to do just for a small wage. You know what I mean? And staying out of a crime. They're just picking people up like that and throwing them out of the country. People that have lived in the country for 10, 20 years, and Nicki Minaj is speaking against these people. Excuse me to describe them as just people, somebody clean. I just mean people that are doing menial labor. This is who they're going after. Labor that no one else wants to do. This is insane. This is insane. And the United States could, like Denmark, have a comprehensive immigration reform, at least have more definition around what immigration is supposed to be. You see what I mean? But we don't even have that yet. We're just flip-flopping again, like we flip-flop on healthcare, like we flip-flop on education. Richest country on earth flip-flops and doesn't have a standard for nothing anymore. We don't have a standard for even goddamn energy anymore. Like, there's no standard I'm talking about infrastructure regarding energy. You see what I mean? Because obviously oil, relying on one thing, gas, that's not infrastructure. You can't rely on one form of energy. You see what I mean? You need to be embracing all forms, including the future forms of energy, right? And the U.S. is flip-flopping on that, right? So here she is. She's just another example of that, how we flip-flop. And this is what people are saying about her ass. Now, luckily, I've never bought a Nicki Minaj record in my motherfucking life. I've never given her one penny. I just don't. There's a lot of artists I don't have nothing to do with because I'm into real hip hop. I'm sorry to say that. I'm not into this corny pop bullshit. I'm into different stories about love, stories about pain, stories about strength, stories about survival, stories about these kind of things. Yeah, all different aspects of life. But I'm not into fake bullshit. I don't need to have a Benz or have expensive clothes to be proud of myself or to feel good or to feel worthy to anybody. Nah, I'm cool as fuck in a whole lot of ways myself. I already know that. I've known that for a long time in my life because I've seen and done a lot of wonderful things. You see what I mean? So I don't need superficial things to do it for me, right? And I believe, she's one of those people that sells superficiality to young kids primarily, but a lot of adults go for this bullshit too, go for this ride. You see what I mean? Me, I'm lucky enough to not really have fed into that in my life, and yeah. It's a crazy thing when you feed into this stuff, but you ain't seen shit on earth. You had the most expensive clothes, but you never traveled the world. It's like, it's a really interesting look. And she doesn't really inspire, if you ask me, but this is what she's up to. She's a MAGA. She's not the only one. There's other, quote unquote, entertainers that are MAGA people, people that you would think would not be people of immigrant background. It's like, what the fuck? You out here supporting people like yourself to be just ripped apart from your loved ones and thrown in a fucking cell that they wouldn't even throw a dog in? Like, yeah, that's Nicki Minaj. That's her story. That's where she's at with it. And what the hell's going on here? Let's see here. That's kooky ass Trump again. Oh, right. This is a great man, Daryl. Everybody, I told you before, Daryl Scott, Professor Daryl Scott, go to his, if you're on Facebook, visit his Facebook page. He has a lot of shorts on there that are brilliant. And kudos to him. I actually follow him on Facebook, but I enjoy his take on politics. Now, I'm just going to rock this one. And again, his name is Daryl Scott. I don't know if you can see that. He's on Facebook, Professor Daryl Scott. But let's listen.
Files. So now we got pedophiles doing color commentary?
Right. Here we go.
The other day I saw Matt Gaetz talking about the Epstein files. So now we got pedophiles doing color commentary?
Exactly.
The other day I saw Matt Gaetz talking about the Epstein files. So now we got pedophiles doing color commentary?
Exactly. Matt Gaetz. I mean,
the other day
for people that don't know, Matt Gaetz was caught up in a basically, paying young girls to have sex with him. Yeah, that's how he got kicked out of the House. I believe it was the House. He was trying to be a Congress member, something like that. Let me see here. Why was Matt? I believe he was kicked out of Congress for this reason. Or maybe he was about to be appointed or sworn in or something happened, or maybe he was sworn in. Right. He was kicked out of the House of Representatives. Oh, hold on. He wasn't kicked out by a vote to expel him, but he left Congress under intense pressure amid major investigations and controversy. Right. Ethics and misconduct investigations. Several years, House Ethics Committee investigated Gaetz over serious allegations of sexual misconduct and illicit drug use, paying for sex with women and a 17-year-old girl, accepting improper gifts, providing special favors for personal associates, obstructing investigations. This is a Republican, by the way. Many of them have these scandals. These allegations were part of a long-running probe that began in 2021. So, in any case, you get the gist on that. That's who he's talking about. So let's.
Saw Matt Gaetz talking about the Epstein files. So now we got pedophiles doing color commentary?
Exactly. It's basically gaslighting. They're all trying to change their perspective now on topics, the MAGA people, and because they see that they're clearly on the run, like they are out. They basically have fucked up. They fucked up. They're the party that has fucked up just every fucking thing. And now they're starting to regret it over the fact that there's some midterms coming up. But, I'm afraid that nobody else can really rely on the U.S. until the people of the United States show that they understand where their mistakes are. And, because people aren't going to trust us so easily anymore. People are not going to trust us so easily anymore because of what we allow, who we elect. And when we elect, we show what we respect, sadly enough. And now that damage has happened to our character as a nation. And it's not going to just be restored overnight, even if you remove Trump. Like, we're going to have to show people why they should respect us again. And then it's up to them whether they do or not. You see what I mean? That's the situation we're in. But here's another example of that. Again, we're just rolling through this really briefly because there's never enough time to cover all the news. But look, judge blocks Trump's administration from detaining British anti-disinformation activists. I mean, come on. This dude is trying to just come to the, just travel freely. And Trump doesn't want him coming to the U.S. because he's against disinformation in the EU. And Trump don't want him coming to the U.S. Look at this shit. Temporary order comes after the State Department announced visa bans on 5 individuals it accused of working to restrict freedom of speech. You see how they use freedom of speech to promote disinformation? Listen, disinformation is an attack on your government, on your country. This is how we have to start treating it. It is dangerous. It is dangerous. It is a threat to Western democracy at this point. Disinformation is. And if governments do not take that threat seriously, you will be looking like the United States right now, going through all kinds of confusion, walking back everything, like having the Epstein, can't even figure out anything, can't figure out nothing. You see what I mean? And so that's going on. Luckily the judge blocked it, but this is the regime. This is who we elected. This is, and I just think it's even bullshit to even say this is who we elected, because why should it even be possible that a person like this is allowed to even run for office? People that want to do what the Trump regime have done, they should never be allowed to be in government, state level or federal level ever. They are corrupt and have corrupt intentions purely. Now, you cannot do good with them. Now, this is a story about Danish bakery making, this shit is funny, yo. This is the most hilarious one of all. Look at this story. A Danish bakery making moron cakes, selling them for 25 krona. A piece. This is wonderful. Whoever made this, if you're out there listening, kudos to you. Big up for Denmark for making this. I appreciate this. And big up to Denmark for standing up for itself, too. Big up to Greenland also for standing up for yourselves, against this tyrant. So let's see here. What else we got? Oh, right. I think that's just about it. We got this. What is this? Right. The scandal about the pictures. Here we go. This is the last one. Here we go, y'all.
Sidewalk. When you hear the apparent snap of a crossbow in surveillance video, Criollo starts to stumble with something sticking out of his back, which we've highlighted. Authorities say he was shot and killed by the arrow in a brazen attack over the weekend in Kearney, New Jersey. His widow overwhelmed by grief at a growing memorial feet from the ambush, saying they killed him like an animal. Accused killer Oscar Fejo now facing murder, weapons, and arson charges. Because when officers had first approached him after the sidewalk killing, Fejo barricaded himself in his home and set fires on numerous floors during an hours-long standoff, according to investigators. You can see one first responder being pulled to safety amid the chaos. Fejo eventually left his home and was taken into custody, flanked by heavily armed officers. His attorney did not respond to our request for comment. A preliminary incident report tonight says he was a stranger to the victim, as loved ones are left to grapple with the 45-year-old father's sudden death. His wife saying, "Every morning my daughter is asking me about her father, what time he will come home." 45-year-old Pablo Criollo was walking down the sidewalk when you hear the apparent snap of a crossbow in surveillance video. Criollo starts to stumble with something sticking out of his back, which we've highlighted. Authorities say he was shot and killed by the arrow in a brazen attack over the weekend in Kearney, New Jersey. His widow overwhelmed by grief at a growing memorial feet from the ambush, saying they killed him like an animal. Accused killer Oscar Fejo now facing murder, weapons, and arson charges. Because when officers had first approached him after the sidewalk killing, Fejo barricaded himself in his home and set fires on numerous floors during an hours-long standoff, according to investigators.
Right. So you can see this guy is basically a lunatic. And, it's very unfortunate that this man had to lose his life just because of a lunatic, a person that doesn't, He doesn't respect himself, so he wants to try to control other people's bodies, you know. And again, this is about controlling people's bodies too. Like, he wants to kill a man for existing. Although this man who killed him, he himself is not happy for his own right to have a life, to do what he wants, to live his life the way he wants to live. And he believes he has the right to kill someone else. And this is the thing. It's not sure, you know, people say the left does violence too. And I know some trolls are probably just saying that right now. I'm not looking at the chat, but I know some trolls are probably saying that. That's what they always say. But it's not just about that. It's about the fact that they're preaching. This is preaching violence. This is preaching political violence. This is not saying I want to use my Second Amendment right to stand up against a tyrant, you know, against an authoritarian. This is not saying I want to use my Second Amendment right to protect my country from being invaded. That's not what this is. This is basically about preaching hate, about trying to make it look like certain kind of people with certain backgrounds are invaders, are what you should look for an illegal immigrant, when the truth is that illegal immigrants, if this guy was even a legal immigrant, I don't even think he was. He was just maybe an immigrant background, but the man who shot him likely has an immigrant background too. You know, and this is the absurdity of it. It goes back to show you, like, look at Nicki Minaj. She's backing up all of this shit, and she's a damn immigrant. Look, if you hear what they say this guy's name is, this is not a typical, I mean, I can already tell you, this guy's family doesn't go back to the colonial period like mine. I know that because of his name, largely, right? But I'm not saying it's a chance that it doesn't. But look, you can tell American names, we have different waves of immigration to the United States of America, and different names come with that immigration period. You see what I mean? We have with the colonial period, we got a lot of names that come from the colonial period, and they're very distinct names. We have names that come from the World War II, right? Yeah, and those are distinct names. Those names start sounding a little different, to be honest with you, right? They show up in America at a different time. Not to say that the names that came in the colonial period didn't also come in the secondary waves too, but some names are only secondary wave. You see what I mean? And so we know that as American citizens, you know, we can kind of pinpoint those things. But let's listen to it again and see what his name is.
Was walking down the sidewalk when you hear the apparent snap of a crossbow in surveillance video. Criollo starts to stumble with something sticking out of his back, which we've highlighted. Authorities say he was shot and killed by the arrow in a brazen attack over the weekend in Kearney, New Jersey. His widow overwhelmed by grief at a growing memorial feet from the ambush, saying they killed him like an animal. Accused killer Oscar Fejo.
See, Oscar Fejo. So, you know, that does not sound like a typical colonial American name. Let me see here. Oscar Fejo. Let me just look him up. Let's see here. Real quick. Boom, 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 boom. I just want to see one thing about him. If his family is immigrant or whatever, right? So, does he have an immigrant background? I'm not saying that the police are sure about what the motive is, but I'm thinking, you know, I'm guessing, my feeling, and notice I said guess in my feeling. I didn't say I know. I suspect that he does, you know, have some sort of immigrant background, but let me see here, see what it says. All right, it says his background. Look, it says it right here. There's no credible news source, Associated Press, local policy that has reported whether Oscar is an immigrant or has immigrant background available. Okay, so they haven't reported on it. Let me see here. Available coverage identifies him only by name, age, Kearney, New Jersey. I mean, it wouldn't be strange for an immigrant to live in New Jersey. There's a lot of immigrants in that region of the country, you know, New York and New Jersey, right? So Fejo in this case, let's see here. Okay, let me see. Is he Brazilian? Is this a Brazilian name? That sounds almost like Brazilian. and or Spanish. Let me see here. It sounds Brazilian. I'm curious about that. Yeah, look at that. It's a Brazilian name. I could tell by how it was spelled. By the way, I'm pretty good at this kind of thing. Like, you know, I've gotten used to identifying different languages, but in names and stuff like that. But look, it's pretty likely that he is an immigrant. You know, maybe first, second generation immigrant, something like that. Maybe his parents came to the U.S. Portuguese. You see what I'm saying? So it could also be Portuguese, and that would be interesting because the guy who shot this these people in this mass shooting in Brown University was also Portuguese. That's strange. Portuguese immigrant. That is strange. I'm just saying. I don't know if that's the case here, but okay. So maybe it is Portuguese. I said Brazil. Okay, now. In any case, that's something I'm curious about, you know. But yeah, somebody said fuck Trump. Yeah, fuck Trump. Fuck Trump all day. Get rid of him. Yo, folks, I appreciate the time with you guys. And somebody said Americans are so stupid. Let me let that play. There you go. Boom. So it's up. It got blocked. But I unblocked that. I let that comment stay up because sometimes we can be stupid now. And there are some Americans that are very stupid. And as you can see, as a collective, we're having some problems right now with brains controlling the story, controlling what's happening, you know. But in that case, I appreciate you all coming out. Daniel, Dennis Nielsen, DK, I see you in the chat. Yo, Supreme, I see you. Friars, I see you. I appreciate everybody for coming out. Listen, let's make this world better while we can. At least let's close the ranks with each other, the like-minded people, the ones you know, outside of race and all of this shit, religion and all of these things, nationality. Look, it's about democracy and fairness and civil rights and basic rights and sticking together on that, you know. So let's remember that there's a lot of us from different backgrounds that believe in that. You know, that's what you know, makes us strong, you know. And let's not lose sight to these extreme narratives. You see what I mean? That want to, you know, kind of put the enemy out to just be so easily explained, to be something too simple. Like, this is how the United States got in its trouble, scapegoating people. You got a president like Trump. You see what I mean? So let's not, the rest of us, let's learn from that and be cool about shit. Let's be fair about shit. Let's have a way for us all to exist in a fair way. Nobody should have to be ashamed. Like JD Vance said, even if you're white, you shouldn't have to be ashamed to be white. It's just that, of course, he uses it as a political ploy. He doesn't explain. He doesn't explain it as good as I do. I say nobody should have to feel ashamed for who they are, their color or their ethnicity or their nationality. Nobody should have to be ashamed. You see what I mean? And that includes people that look like JD Vance too. You know what I'm saying? But JD Vance, you know, he don't feel that way. He's only he's so caught into his own suffering. You know, he doesn't recognize he's you just joining the crew, joining everybody else in this. So let's have a real conversation about that. And you know, but on that note, I appreciate everybody for coming out. Click the like button. Listen, it's going to be the click the like button. Click the subscribe button if you not subscribed. Share the videos if you don't mind. That would also get more people involved in the conversation. At least we can have Dave Chappelle. Yo, he's from DC. Dave Chappelle for president, by the way. Dave, what's up, Dave? If you're out there. And yeah, my hometown DC. You know, big up to Dave Chappelle. Another person. Dave Chappelle is bringing people together. You see what I mean? And helping us look in the mirror all together. You know, nobody's better than each other. We can all look in the mirror, and when we do that, we get a lot more out of life. I think we get a lot more out of our situations. You know what I mean? And I've always been a person that I've benefited from people with different backgrounds. You know what I mean? I've learned a lot of things from people with different backgrounds, just from allowing me to hang around and be present. You know what I'm saying? In their midst. So I know what power that brings. And so I know the crime I would do to myself and do to others to try to preach something different. You see what I mean? So on that note, everybody have a wonderful day. Listen, it's New Year's. I'm going to go live, but it's not going to be my normal platform. I'm just going to do some short lives on New Year's night just to say hello to everybody. But if there's something that's serious that comes up, I might come on and do a real live. So look out for that. But if I don't see you tomorrow, Happy New Year to everybody. And I wish you a wonderful start to your new year, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from. Let's see. Let's pray. God, I mean, I'm talking about praying, but let's pray. Even if you don't pray, even if you don't leave it up to the gods, let's meditate on this. Then let's meditate on, please. Can we do what's necessary to make 2026 better, a better year? Like, can something happen like Trump be impeached? I mean, goddamn, can we start with that? Can we just impeach? Please, let's pray for Trump to be impeached January 1st, 2026, and everyone in his goddamn cabinet. Please. Amen. Yes. Okay. On that note, I'm out, y'all. Everybody be good. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Y'all be good. All right. I'll be back with you in 24 hours, something like that. All right. So on that note, I'm out. All right. Peace. Just relax. Just relax. Impeach Trump.
Can you feel it? Nothing can save ya, cause this is the season of funky behavior. I came to relax your mind, you can recline. On what? On this here rhyme. I like the style, I'm staying for a while. It helps me show cats that I'm versatile. I'll touch your dial, turn your frown to a smile. I'll make you feel like you're having a child. So relax and open up, child. I'm about to make you walk what them style, or pimped out style. You don't understand the logic. See, if you don't have it all, I'll take a deposit. I got shit for you, it's alright indeed. It's like going to the garden and planting the seed. It might tickle for a second, but it won't bleed.
And what's up?
So just relax, just hear a dope ride.
The rhymes is real tight, everything is real fat.
You don't have to do work, we'll do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat. Just relax and just
see y'all.
The rhymes is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat. Your entertainment, at the same time edutainment. In other words, you could call it bent. What I'm saying is that I'm here at your service. It's hard work, but then again, I deserve this. I'm helping people enjoy their spare time. I'm like an instructor when I'm doing my rhyme. Relax and just hear the dope track. It's really not all that, it's not like a gag. We like that when everything is relaxed and chill. You don't have to get fucked up or take pills, cause I like being myself, it feels good. Yo, it makes my meals taste good. 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 So just relax. And hear a dope track. The vibes is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat. Just relax and hear a dope track. The vibes is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat. Just relax. My mind state, now balloon, it won't inflate. Just take the buzz, this my Twaza kid, fuck the shake. And take it to a lower level, and dig a ditch for a devil. Got some more kids and pass the shovel. Dig a hole, take them on a spiritual roll. Lyrics unfold, need the data unroll the scroll. Episodes keep reoccurring and stifling. People's vision get blurring, their hearts start murmuring. I'm about 5 times iller than a Sherman. Introspection is God's gift to the miracle. I freak material, lamb's milk without the cereal. When MCs say your booty, they mean venereal. Your fake material hip-hop killers, they more faking than fucking Michael Jackson and Thriller. The status of a hoe, Quanto Costa. They wanna know how much it costs, kid, I bet for keep to me. Just relax and just hear a dope track. The vibes is real nice, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat, just relax and just hear a dope track. The vibe is relaxed, everything is real fat. You don't have to do work, we do that. It's the type of place where you can wear your hat, just relax. They want war. Crime babies looking for food. Starvation, the recipe. People subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day in every clue. Don't let it go. It's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep. Even 7 roads to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a death old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct, and I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink, but I documented for the world what I see and think. Feel we on the call and I feel we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die. You voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War. All they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a lotus coming out of the mud with colors, I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers. Cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather. I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double. But nature gets the shit in the way to settle. If you stop the machines for a minute,